Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 11th of February, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Super.
And Robert Kemp.
Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
I thought about saying hot.
Yeah, I thought about you thinking about saying hot also.
Yeah. Taste something that does put things in holes.
Okay. Start this podcast immediately with a conversation we're having before the podcast.
At the universal game mechanic, right?
Yep.
The Jingwei technically is putting things in holes, right? If it wants to fit, it's a mythical bird that wants to fill up the ocean, right? That's a big old hole to put things in.
Yeah, I guess so. But
I mean,
but the whole.
But then is it a hole,
on a
right?
sphere. It's
Yeah.
like inverted.
Well, is it a hole if it already contains water? Because it's already full of something.
Mm.
Just not the thing that this bird is trying to put in there.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Like, 'cause I suppose water is a covering rather than filling a hole, right? In the context of a planet.
But then there's a hole full of gas, still a hole.
You could definitely fill a hole with water. Come on.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
what I'm
you
saying.
can,
Is if
but
it's
like,
full
but
of water, is it then still a hole?
In the context
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
oceans, like, are the oceans in a hole? I mean, the ocean is deep, right? Sure. So there's some hole-like aspects to it.
Hole-like aspects.
Is this where you start with like a lake or whatever? A puddle is a puddler qualify, and then there's a lake qualify. And
Yeah,
then
because
you
a
go
puddle is
until
like
it's
that's
a
too shallow
sea.
to be a hole, right?
That's a little hole.
It's like an
it's a
inland
dimple.
sea.
It's a little hole.
Like, I don't know. I feel like that even in that context, I think you're like different sizes of puddles get towards different levels of wholeness.
Holiness.
I say it contains a volume of water, therefore it's a hole in my like.
But what if it's just a subtle indentation or incline?
Bit of a hole.
Even if it's
So
huge.
what's this bird trying to do to the ocean?
Well,
Fill it up with
fill it
crap,
up, yeah.
basically. Fill it up with not water.
The myth
with not
goes
water.
that it was someone who drowned in the ocean,
And
then,
so they were like, fuck this ocean.
yeah, when they got reincarnated as a bird, and were
Not-
like, well, I'm going to fill this ocean in.
Someone not happy with the concept of water filling a hole would rather fill it with something else.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. They're
Yeah.
filling that hole with stuff that's not water to make it less of a hole. Or more of a hole.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture like take the like if you've got a sphere, right? That was a small planetoid, right? That was
Yeah.
okay. Start off with it being entirely covered in water, right? Like
Sure.
therefore no hole, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But if you put like a single plot of land on it that's higher than
mountain.
like
But
yeah,
it's still not a hole because everywhere else is water around it. Like you can join the two sides of the
But yeah.
of the land part.
But that's the thing. Depending on how you now project
Yeah.
that planet into like, like if you flattened it out somehow, and like depending on how you map projected it, like could the ocean now be encompassed by this land in some way, therefore making the ocean a hole?
This is getting into like it's literally a mathematical question,
Yes,
isn't it? How
exactly,
many holes
like,
does a straw have?
whatever
Like
that's
it's
called.
topology,
Yes,
isn't it?
topology.
It's like a whole branch of maths trying to figure out what a hole is.
But that's not exactly the same kind of holes that we're talking about. You got to
Yeah.
use topology to figure out whether a puddle is a hole or not. Because topology ways it's basically nothing at all. A puddle is basically not even a thing.
I mean, in terms of the universal game mechanic, is any like target location you need to put something at?
Well, yes.
That fills the concept of things in holes, right?
Yes, in a conceptual concept of it being the universal game mechanic.
A conceptual concept,
Yeah.
like it's an extra layer deep.
Well, it is.
So if you're like playing
you're
capture
putting
the
a thing.
flag and you're putting the flag on top of the hill, that counts as a hole in
Putting
the
things in
universal game
holes?
mechanic.
Yes,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Even
that's what
though
I'm
the
saying. It's
opposite
like-
of a hole. It's a hill.
For a game mechanical perspective, it's putting things in holes is just what we call it. It's actually like putting a thing into a place.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
movement of item, I suppose.
Yes. Move a thing to a designated location.
But put things in holes sounds better.
Yes.
Because even though the reverse of that mechanic is in like Tears of the Kingdom, you're still taking the rock out of its starting hole and putting it into some other three-pronged
Yes,
wooden hole.
it's still it's a hole, just a different hole,
Yeah.
basically.
From hole to hole. Is that what our like autobiography should be called? Like from
I hope not.
Might give the wrong idea.
Yeah, just a little.
Oh, man.
So, good week. Have you been putting any universal game mechanics to the test?
Yeah, you had to put at least one thing into a place and then get another thing and put it into a different place.
Bring it into a different place.
Or the same place even. You took a thing out of one hole, put it into a different hole, and brought another thing back to put in the first hole.
The original hole, yeah. Like, I guess Moe from The Simpsons calls the garage a car hole, right?
So you didn't put it in your garage, though.
I didn't put it in my garage. Like, you can't fit cars in my garage. Well, I gave a game away. I got a car. We might have talked about this last time, but I got a car.
Yes.
Well,
we didn't talk about you having it. We talked about you about to be having it.
Yeah, I know I actually have it.
How long since you've had a new car?
Thursday.
I mean, before that.
Oh, before I've had like a car, any car.
No, I mean, since the
car.
last car. That's what Dad needs.
The last car. Oh, right. Yeah, that thing I'd had for about 11 years. Yeah, about 11 years. Bit more than that. But yeah.
Now, 3-4 days.
Yeah, I've had a few days of jag. So yeah, I got myself an iPace, and I love it. I love it so much. It's great. I mean, I can't recommend getting an EV without a wall box, though. Boy, it's a pain in the ass.
Well, yeah, unsurprisingly.
And so like one of the first things I want to get my head around, like, what is actually charging like an EV like on a road trip. So like on the way back, we stopped off at South Mims. Represent. We always stop at
the
South
classic.
Mims. Yeah. So it's like
that's like the British motorway service station, isn't it? South
pretty much,
Mims.
yeah. Well, it's the only like useful one on the M25 North, right? On the north section of it.
Mims.
So we ended up there, and there was a fast charger, plugged it in. The experience was all good, but it's expensive. Like using those machines, like the whole like dream of like electric being cheaper than petrol is only true when you charge at home.
Or slowly, I guess.
Yeah,
because that's really what you're paying for with the fast charge.
Yeah,
you're paying for getting it done real quick.
Well, and real quick is relative, right? Because
Well,
it's not real quick in a Jag, but compared to some other cars, but it's acceptable. But yeah, probably cost twice as much as filling with petrol. And that's petrol, not even diesel. Yeah, doing it at a fast charger, it was expensive. Like 100 miles cost about 20 quid, which is not great. Right,
disappointing.
It's not a great rate, no. But then that's not the thing about, like, if you've got an EV, you're not really buying it to do long journeys, right? Because that's just not how.
I guess so.
It's just not what they're best at. They're best at doing your daily.
It's a bit disappointing though that it is.
It wasn't like this that long ago.
Expensive.
You go back like 2 years or something, and it would have cost half that, which would have been way more acceptable. But yeah, electric.
So what's actually gone up? Not the cost of electricity, but
they claim. Well, no, that's what they're claiming. Top. Actually, they're claiming it's the cost of building in the infrastructure combined because and expanding it and making it work. Because the first wave of everyone putting EV chargers in the place was a bit of a crapshoot. They don't, with chargers frequently not working or being so unbelievably slow, even though they claim to be fast, that it's not really worth using, or the payment systems and the infrastructure behind the software side of it not functioning. That's all been a bit of a disaster. But so they've actually had to effectively take what they've done and redo it. Unless you're Tesla, of course, who just got it right, for the most part. So yeah, they're claiming that and the wholesale increases of electricity as being problematic.
Okay.
So it doesn't really work for them, apparently. I'm not sure I believe any of that, but they've all raised their prices to similar levels for that stuff, that's a bummer. So it's not. But then again, I always knew going into this that it wasn't going to be perhaps as convenient a road trip a car. I mean, it would be super lovely if it was, because I love sitting in that thing, and it's such a nice place to be. You can put the adaptive cruise control and relax, and The sound system is, it's got a Meridian sound system in there, and it sounds
Ooh.
great.
Nice. Does that come standard, or is that
How much power does that use?
Yeah, good question. Probably quite a bit if I really pumped it. But yeah, it's standard on the iPace. I don't think you can get a version without it.
Very nice.
But yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, well, once I get like home charging set up, at the moment I've had to charge it like with a 3-pin plug out my kitchen window, because you're not allowed to use an extension lead with it because they're worried about the thermals.
Right.
And it might catch fire. So yeah, there's been a cable hanging out my kitchen most of the weekend, charging the thing up at a whopping 4 miles an hour charge rate. So yeah, and then so once I get a wall box, and you can then get a tariff so overnight it will be like 5 times cheaper than what it is on a standard tariff to charge a car. So then it will all start making sense. But until I get that wall box fitted, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass to.
So is that all ordered then, on order?
I am awaiting an email from the supplier to get some of that sorted. It was part of the deal of buying the iPace that one would be thrown in.
Which means they're probably going to be real lax about getting around to that.
Yeah, I'm going to chase
extra stuff
because it is. I will chase it because it is a bit painful doing it this way at the moment. But it will be good once it's all sorted. It's a wonderful thing. I managed to freak my mum the hell out because I took her for a drive in it just to be like, she's never. Yeah, and I booted it one, and she was like. Ah! And it's like, there you go. That's my day done. I'm out. I'm happy now.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think she quite realised just how much juice was in that thing. She said, "Oh, I knew they were. I knew EVs did have a bit of grunt to them." And it's like, "Oh no, not this one. This one's got a lot of grunt."
Excellent.
It's good. It's really I love it. Love it.
And have you transported your child anywhere?
Yes. Well, he came with us to pick up the car because we sort of did a bit of a round. I had to go to Oxford to get it, so we did a bit of a round trip and visited a friend of ours on the route. And and Bubba came with. Did it's SUV sized, so fitting the car seat is nice and easy into it. Gnome has leg room if she's the passenger. There's leg room. Who'd have thought? Something you really didn't get in the Focus, my last car.
No.
With a car seat in the back. So yeah, Bubba approves as much as he sleeps on car journeys. So that's
oh good. That's good. That's a blessing.
That's as much approval as we'll get.
He doesn't need a petrol engine to sleep.
No, he does not. No. Yeah, I guess I'll talk more about it as I discover more about the EV lifestyle.
You talk more about it when it goes wrong somehow.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
I wonder if it affects the sleeping on the because presumably it's less vibrations going on compared to
you're still getting all the road vibrations.
Yeah, I don't think the engine
Yeah,
contributes that much to the vibration.
I mean,
unless the engine's
probably
quite
right.
fucked up. But...
I mean, EVs are I mean, EVs are heavy cars, right? So they're like they're not known to be the softest rides in general because their suspension has to be a bit harder to deal with. I mean, the I-Pace is over 2 tons. It's a heavy thing. And so, yeah, the suspension has to be firmed up. And it doesn't help that the I-Pace often comes in big wheels, which, naturally hardens the ride. As cool as they look, it hardens the ride. And I think that's fair. I don't think my I-Pace is any more comfortable, I think, than the Focus or the Beamer to actually, in terms of how it handles bumps and stuff like that. It's about the same. Yeah. But it is more planted in turns because of that low center of gravity, despite its weight. Although you do have to be a little bit careful. You do sort of forget about it. I did manage to accidentally drift it a bit round a roundabout. It was like really rainy and stuff when we went and picked up, so that didn't help. And it was a greasy little tight turn, really tight roundabout, and I did feel it slip a bit. And it's like, oh, okay, I do have to be a little bit careful with this. But yeah, I love it. I love it so much. And revelation, Android Auto is amazing. Like, I haven't had a car with Android Auto, and it just does everything you want it to do. And the integration in the Jag is really well thought through, and that it has its own like navigation system in. I thought that would be the only navigation I could get in front of me on the driver view, like the cluster in front of the wheel. But no, if you actually, it will show the Jag map like by default. But as soon as you start routing with Android Auto takes over that screen as well as the center console screen. So I get Google Maps in front of me while I'm driving,
nice.
And it's like that's perfect, right? And that was the
exactly
thing I was
what you wanted.
exactly. Yeah, that was the thing I talked about last week, like with the was it the Volvo, the XC40 when we drove it, and it's like because it's all Google built in. Of course, it's going to be Google in front of you. You don't need to worry about it. But it's it's all super well integrated, and I didn't know Android Auto could do that, like drive two separate screens at the same time, and it does it all over wireless as well. I don't have to plug in to do that. It's
Surely, in general, I don't know, but surely in general, why do these car makers put so much effort into the infotainment system when, like, as long as they have the best possible support for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, then why wouldn't you just use that?
I mean, ultimately, it's transformative. It's like, okay, the Jag has, in theory, it can do some stuff on its own. It can connect to Spotify without you needing, because it's got its own data SIM built into the car. And things like that, so it can run data itself to drive that.
Do you need a contract for that?
Yes, you do, but it is. I currently don't have to cover that until September. There is like a £10 a month contract if I want to run that, and that also is what enables some of the like mobile features to work. Like if I park it up somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I want to check on the status of it, or I want to check how it's charging from afar.
Oh, it needs
some sort of data connection to actually tell me that stuff.
Is that with Jaguar, the manufacturer? Or
it's a Jag subscription. The SIM is all built into the car, so you can't change it. So one drawback, but like because it's 2.5 years and the initial free subscription is 3 years, I'm still covered for 6 months, so that's all right.
Nice.
It's a bit annoying that it doesn't just pull that off your phone, I suppose. But then if you walk away from the car, then you take your phone with you, right? So it's of course it doesn't work.
Fair enough.
I mean, stupid little things. The pop-out door handles are never going to get old.
Until they break.
Until they break.
Until they're old.
Until they're old. Yeah. No,
they'll get old when they're old.
I love it every single time that they pop out. It's, I don't know. It's a little thing, but it's just like, hee.
Do they pop out when you unlock it?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. I mean, when the handles are out, it's unlocked. When the handles are in, it's locked. It's simple.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's awesome.
All right. Well, look forward to come visit you sometime and I can get a drive around.
Absolutely.
Get a test drive.
Find a slip road and terrorize the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Very quietly.
Actually, super quietly.
Actually, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, it's not the quietest EV in the world. Like the motors do whine a bit in the I-Pace, but I don't mind that. That's absolutely fine. It has got an option I found in the menus where you can make the some sort of noise into dynamic mode, which I haven't tried yet. I haven't quite. I don't know if I want that. I've set it on its quietest setting, so I don't know.
Is that for warning pedestrians or that you're coming?
No, I think it's internal noise. I don't know.
Oh, internal noise. Okay.
I think it does have a sort of like reversing. It has a reversing beep. Like cars are becoming like trucks, I suppose.
Like trucks, yeah.
It's a little bit more classy than a truck's like beep beep beep. It's more of a boom.
Well, they're not even meant to have that any longer, are they? They're meant to all be white noise now for trucks.
Oh, what the sort of
yeah.
Was that to stop annoying people?
No, it's because like if it's a beep, you can get like echoes and stuff that really interfere with that. So if it's just white noise, it makes it much more actually audible and like you can tell direction easier if it's a white noise sound.
Right. Yeah. I guess because that's
and as a bonus, it's less annoying.
Well,
arguably,
they're not really white noisy, are they? These things they're more like really harsh buzzer sound things, aren't they? When you actually hear
like
them.
a square wave thing. But I prefer that to the. That's good.
Yeah, because they sort of have that as an option, don't they, on like police cars and ambulances? That's why they do that. That's why they modulate the sound as they're getting into traffic, or they're supposed to, like pushing. They go to try and mix it up a bit, as well as getting your attention.
Well, yes. Because if a siren has been gradually creeping up on you from far away, you're not going to notice it as easily.
Yeah. Can a siren creep up on you? It'd be the worst horror movie ever. Like what's that?
Siren Head. that's a thing.
Siren Head.
Woo, woo, woo. He's here somewhere. Woo, woo.
is that Zach's horror movie?
That's a real
Siren
thing.
Head.
Is it?
From at least a video game and possibly a film. I don't remember.
Siren Head.
Although in that case, I believe it's more like tornado sirens in that case.
Oh, right.
Like it's not like a police siren head.
Yeah, it's just got a single red light. Cars.
Speaking of electrical things setting on fire.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So this is actually YouTube advert section, but like one of the adverts that I've seen recently is for a product that I'm familiar with from the charity shop, basically, because we keep getting them and they're so shit. But it's these it's those like heaters that are just like a plug. Like you plug them into the socket, it's just a big lump that has the heating elements in it and a tiny fan.
Oh, I've not seen those.
Well, no, you wouldn't have because they're shit.
That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Nope, also that. But so that's like I occasionally get adverts for those on YouTube, and it does the classic people badly advertising heaters thing and being like, it heats up the room faster than any other heater, and it's like, no, it doesn't. It puts out exactly 2,000 watts like every other goddamn heater does at best.
And presumably that is a very small directed area as well.
Yeah, presumably. I mean, it must depend on the airflow of your room. But the reason that I always find those adverts particularly funny is because every time I see them at the charity shop when I'm doing the electrical testing, it's like, we just have to chuck them out because then, from my perspective, they're probably actually illegal.
Right.
Because sometimes they don't have the right markings on them, which that you just have to check out immediately.
Immediate disqualification.
But the ones that do have the right markings on them imply that they're meant to be earthed, as you would hope.
Yeah.
For a heater.
Something that juicy.
But then, because it's just a block, like a plug block, it doesn't have an accessible fuse, which then I'm like, yeah, we surely cannot sell that. Because I'm pretty sure if it's earthed, you have to have access to the fuse.
Right.
If it even has a fuse, because, I don't know, because I guess I could open one up, like, physically, like, unscrew it and see if there's a fuse in there.
So you mean it doesn't even have the little panel on the
No.
back? Yeah, okay, got you.
And I'm like, that's surely got to be illegal.
Oh, the little plastic things so you can see the fuse and replace it without unscrewing the whole thing. Yeah.
I mean, obviously you have to unscrew quite a lot of plugs to access the fuse, but not when it's like built into the. And also, like
when it's the device itself, it's just a plug. Yeah,
I was looking at it and it's like I probably could unscrew this, but I don't. It doesn't look like you're meant to in a way that you would unscrew a plug to look at a fuse.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, we probably can't sell those. Just chuck them.
I think they should be chucked. Regardless, I don't think anyone should be buying them new, to be
don't
honest.
buy those at all.
Yeah.
Don't give them to charity.
It's got to be one hell of a fire hazard.
I mean, anything anything that's electric and heating has always sort of put a bit of worry in me. Like, it doesn't have to be, even if it's like a big old, like one of those standy, like purpose-built things for the job, they've always sort of freaked me out a bit.
Yeah.
Actually, it's
just very high-power devices like...
Well, yeah, anything in the 2,000 watt range, the maximum that you can usually get out of our power
like my car
range.
charger.
The kettle's like 3,000 watts, isn't it? Which is like maximum possible, right? You can get out of a UK plug.
Yeah, I think that's
Is that really as high as it goes?
I think that's a slightly special case, though. To get over 2,000, you have to, like, I think it's something to do with the ring circuit or whatever. You have to have a slightly special one.
Like a special socket? Or
a special version of the ring, like
one of
extra thick wires or something.
Right, is it like one of those sockets that has like the big red... Oh, they often fit in kitchens.
What, for the big cooker, like the cooker ones?
Yeah, but sometimes there's like an actual plug socket.
Yeah, I think that might be what that is.
With a massive red switch on.
But basically every heater and hairdryer and all that stuff is 2,000. Speaking of continuing this conversation about electrical stuff setting on fire, weirdly the opposite problem that I don't understand why this is the case, but when we get a bunch of like hair products, but not like hair dryers, because hair dryers are obviously like 2,000 watts, so that's like 13 amp fuse, and that's all good. But when you get like straighteners or rollers that have a heating element on them, those are usually like 20 to 40 watts. It's like you wouldn't have thought it was that low comparatively, but it really is.
I suppose they slow heat, right? They don't.
Well, I don't know. They heat up pretty quick when you plug them in, but like it's a way lower wattage than you would think for the amount of heat they can put out that quickly.
Surprising.
But the thing that's weird about it, and I don't know why this is, but like it seems to just be the industry standard that they put 5 amp fuses in them instead of 3 amp, and I don't know why. Because like the the training that we get is like if it's below 500 watts, you put a 3 amp in it. If it's above 500 watts, you put a 13 in, and we don't bother with 5s. We just have that be the cutoff.
Let's have a hard and fast rule.
But if it says that it takes a 5 amp on the plug or whatever, just leave it. But for some reason, all those low-powered hair products have 5 amp fuses in, and I don't know why. And it's just like, what is that?
Is it a bit surgy, do you think? Or
maybe. Like I vaguely think I heard at some point it was a weird, like almost anti-safety thing of because people kept using them in bathrooms, they kept blowing the fuses too much because of the moisture.
Right.
Because of the moisture.
Making it short the thing and blow the fuse. I was like, it's like the anti-safety rule, but that might just be a purely made up thing that I don't even actually remember. I just think I do.
But it's still relatively safe if it goes at 5 amps instead of 3, isn't it? I don't know.
Sure, but
How much more dangerous is that?
Well, it's like the whole point would be that in order to blow the fuse, it would have to be drawing enough current to blow the fuse, which is why, like, at 5 amps, at like 500 watts, that thing would have to be drawing like 10 times as much power as it's supposed to due to the short circuit or whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, okay.
So yeah, I don't understand.
Presumably if it's a bad, I can't remember my electronics, if it's a bad short circuit, it's going to draw as much power as it
will just blow
immediately. Yeah.
But yeah, I see it all the time, and I used to replace them with 3 amps, but then we used so many 3 amp fuses we never had any. So I was just like, if it says it's going to have, I'll just give up and let them do whatever the hell they're doing.
Is right, then carry on with 5. Okay.
Oh, well, that is. It must be just some weird, like, industry standard government legislation thing that that's just how it is.
Yeah, I wonder.
Wasn't there some kind of GCSE maths right? Is the limit to power like what was it? 200? What would it be? 230 volts multiplied by 13 amps, right?
Yeah, something
just
like that.
Sure, that would be the
that
wattage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the limit.
I thought there was a government restriction though, like even though that is the theoretical limit we can get out of the sockets, that like Hoovers and high power devices had to lower their.
I don't think that was necessarily due to the power grid. I think that was just more of a safety thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like they're not allowed to actually make devices
above 2,000.
That are above a threshold.
But
And so like Dyson and all that all got a bit annoyed.
Fast.
Well, yeah, that is the annoying thing. If you like, we're like on the verge of being able to remember this, but we're like getting an old vacuum and it's like, holy shit, this thing sucks a lot, but in the good way.
Properly, yeah.
In the good way.
Yeah. I was like, because they've had to downgrade all the things. Well, don't get me wrong, motors have got better, but also, and Dyson's tech made everything change, right? When they first
because they didn't need to suck as hard, really.
Yeah, but yeah, when that kicked in, yeah, I think there was a noticeable downgrade.
Can we get, now that we've got Brexit done, can we go back to 240 volts instead of 230? Thanks very much.
I don't think that's going to make much difference.
No, obviously not. I'm only joking.
They're not going to do that now, are they?
No,
we've already got the best plugs, so
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough. Unless you stand on one,
we'll keep those things. So, like, I'm sure I've asked this a million times before, and I can never remember exactly what the answer is. Like, American plugs, right? They don't have an earth.
They can do. They have a free-prong version of their plug.
Oh, do they? Oh, okay. So, like, because I was like, what do they do for like electric heaters? Do they have to be produced with a 3-prong?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't even have said have to. I think in the American situation is just do whatever the fuck you want sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like,
but they have less. You can.
They are a lower voltage.
10 volt, right?
Yeah, and 120 or whatever.
Oh yes, yeah, of course.
Which is
the kettle problem.
Yes, which is why making tea sucks in America. Takes twice as long to boil, approximately, except not really. That's been tested. Whatever. Go watch the YouTube video about it.
Yeah. Presumably they must have...
Yep, that one guy.
Connections or something. Is that the guy?
Yes.
Yeah, because presumably they must be able to have good ways of making boiling water or hot water. Otherwise they wouldn't have coffee machines, right? I mean, I know they don't... Ideally, a coffee machine doesn't get up to boiling, but still.
Slightly different system, I guess.
Yeah. Hot water on demand will be good enough for tea, presumably, rather than having to boil a whole bunch of water, kettle style.
Maybe.
Cookers.
They do have like kitchen double phase whatever sockets, don't they, in the kitchen? I don't think we need those, do we? Okay.
No.
Sometimes.
We just have the cooker plugs or whatever that are slightly higher, but not double. Don't think you'd want double on our grid. That'd be real bad.
Electrical discussions, which chimes nicely with the electrical vehicles.
Yes. Well, I was just the main reason I was thinking about that was just because, like, bearing in mind that you wouldn't even be able to get from our house to a place you could park a car, my house, to a place where you could park a car in order to charge it without an extremely long cable.
Yeah, it'd be impossible in your situation.
But also, I don't think my house's electrical grid could handle that, considering, the problem I mentioned before about, like, every time anyone interacts with the hot tub socket in any way, it just blows the whole circuit.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised your house isn't still coal-powered. I mean.
Well, yeah. I kind of wish it was in some ways.
That's the weird thing, isn't it? Because like the government still is it 2030 is supposedly the date when they're going to stop selling petrol cars, petrol and diesel cars, and then like everything has to be electric from there. But there are so many houses where that's just not going to work, and like even
not without like real public infrastructure.
Yeah,
work.
The public infrastructure would need a hell of a lot of work, and it would need to become affordable, which it currently isn't.
Well, sure.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, 7 years or 6 years, I suppose now, seems like, I keep forgetting it's 2024. 6 years is a long time, but for infrastructure, it really isn't.
Well, or maybe, maybe we're just going to be the new Cuba and we'll be driving 50-year-old cars all the time.
Yeah. Man, that'd be rad. But the problem is like it would be from now.
Yeah,
right? So
it'd be these cars we currently have, but 50 years old.
It wouldn't nearly be as cool.
Infrastructure is so weird because it's obviously a massive investment, like creating the railways or the national grid and all this stuff, and we think but if there is actual demand for it, like I was just thinking of, we can't build a railway from London to Manchester, apparently. It's impossible. But just think how fast those mobile phone towers went up. Like they were everywhere within about 10 years from nowhere, right? And now they're on. But that cover
those presumably
country.
Aren't the government, right? Mobile phone towers.
No, exactly.
I mean, no, I don't know. Presumably there's some combination of BT and then mobile networks that have
the networks, yeah.
Presumably get special permission for where they have put the towers up, or presumably in the big towers, right? Presumably they own the land where that goes up, but the 5G towers are like little posts that are just like light lamp posts, right? That are just in random spots, and it's.
But yes,
if that can be done, if 5G can be done to cover the country, I'm sure we can.
Yeah, but I think that's a little different, right? Because I guess maybe the power requirement for those is considerably lower, and it's in a single spot, and it's
maybe.
Well, I mean, the physical difference, but also like the reason that can get done quickly is because of money.
Yeah,
because it makes money rather than just expending money, which is what the government side.
Does it make money? That's the thing. Like, okay, you can.
Versus not having a 5G network at all, then yes, it does make money.
Well, because 5G to me is still feels unnecessary.
Well, sure.
Over 4G. Like, it's just 5G isn't reliable enough. Like, maybe it is in London,
sure.
But everywhere else, like, it's always felt like it actually makes things worse. Like, sure, my phone actually has 5G capability, but like when it's doing that transition for like you're drifting in and out of 5G because the 5G isn't quite strong enough, but the 4G is good, and your phone can't make up its mind what bloody network to use. The experience is much worse, and there's plenty of spots around Ipswich in this area where that happens, and it's quite annoying. There's like a black spot if you're driving towards Felixstowe. Like you sort of get near the Orwell Bridge, and it can't make up its mind. Like whatever phone you're using, or whatever you're using, and it just you won't have signal around there. It's bad. It's bad. Even though there's a bloody mast right there, it just doesn't actually work.
So that's the infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Yeah, it's possible, right? But like, and the infrastructure isn't actually that bad. There are charges friggin' everywhere now, but it's just the cost of it. The cost of it is the problem. And if more and more EVs hit the road, there isn't enough infrastructure for the number of EVs that will be on the road in 6 years' time, unless they really start putting stuff in there.
Or have to be forced.
But EVs have a unique problem, right? There's like petrol stations are relatively easy to put up because you get in, you fill up, you go. It's not the case with EVs. EVs have to sit there for quite some period of time.
Well, I know this is already a problem that has been discussed a million years ago at this point, but like, surely the solution would have been to have like the battery be fully removable, right? But it's
been trialed, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't
actually work. But that's the logical solution.
Yeah,
just like shoot for the whole battery out and then leave that behind.
The problem is until we get to that's only ever going to work when we get to the point where battery tech has.
Well, yes,
battery tech is still improving at a rate where that doesn't fly.
No,
if we get to the point where we plateau significantly, then
everyone's batteries are the same.
Yeah,
that would also be that would be the only way that would work. Then
that can be standardized a bit. Yeah.
Obviously, you need more space because people need to wait for things to charge. But presumably, it's a lot easier to build one of those from scratch because, like, a petrol station must need tanks to handle volatile chemicals and pumps.
Yeah, but giant main electricity lines isn't exactly the easiest thing to build.
No, that's like if petrol stations couldn't have tanks and couldn't have deliveries, they'd have to build a pipeline to it, and it's the same.
I suppose
it's the same problem with it, in theory. In theory, I mean, we don't even get gas lines here, right? There's no gas in this area where I am at.
So you don't have gas.
We don't have gas. Yeah. It's not possible for us to get gas. Because there just aren't the lines here.
That is one of those classic parts of our being in the countryside-ish, where it's like we're still getting that weird infrastructure where, like, my house is, again, as we've mentioned before, like 2 golf holes away from here, and we have gas. Just like
just because we're a little bit outside of Needham Market, we don't get it.
Yeah.
I like how you measure distance in golf holes. That's quite. I mean, that's accurate. Yeah.
That kind of just flew. I didn't even realize that. That just kind of like, that makes sense.
Well, it's about right.
Because we've said that before. It's a reference to our previous podcasts.
2 par 4s, maybe a par 4 and a par 5.
Oh, it's probably 2 par 5s at least.
Yeah,
maybe
about that. As the crow flies.
Yes.
As the ball flies.
Yep.
As the drive.
As the
goes.
As the jazz plays.
As the drive goes. So, video games.
Maybe.
Video games. Should we do some news?
I heard there was some news this week.
There was a little bit of news, yeah.
What's going on?
Not to be overshadowed by Microsoft doing their Developer Direct, which we talked about last time. Sony thought they should do a state of play.
But Nintendo still didn't think they should do anything yet.
No, the January Direct didn't happen.
No.
Hang on, there's been like 2 state of plays, hasn't there?
What? Technically,
yeah.
Wasn't one of them like a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth deep dive?
They did the whole Final Fantasy VII one separately for some reason.
I mean, this is running into the same the problem as the Nintendo Directs, where it's like sometimes it's not a really Nintendo Direct; it's just about one game.
Yeah, yeah. That was a Final Fantasy Direct.
Yeah,
I guess
pretty much.
It sometimes it makes me wonder, like, why is Sony putting that out? Or shouldn't Square do that? Right. Shouldn't Square have done, like, here's our Final Fantasy deep dive?
Well, I'm sure it probably is Square doing all the work, and it's just Sony putting the branding on it.
and distributing it, I guess. Probably is something like that. Anyway, there's a few things that I've picked out here that are probably worth talking about a little bit. Maybe, yeah. I mean, not all of them are going to appeal to everyone. Stellar Blade showed up again, which is the... I'm going to say... sexy action game. It's sort of like it's trying to be a bit Bayonetta-y.
Oh, that's the one with the butts.
That's the one with the butts. Yep.
Butts all over the place.
And slightly egregious old school jiggle physics, if we're being perfectly honest. It's there. It's hard not to notice.
And legs down to the ground, as they say. Now,
Dem some pins.
Some serious pins going on in this game.
I mean, having said all of that, is it bad that I'm now about to say I think this game looks cool?
I mean, it can look cool and still have butts.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Bayonetta, right? And it's like, but it's not like about that. It's like the gameplay itself looks pretty good and pretty interesting, and I kind of like its vibe. Shame that it's a PlayStation exclusive now. I mean, we knew about that a while back, but it was originally going to be a multi-platform release, but Sony stepped in, so it's a PlayStation exclusive now. I mean, I only learned this recently, but the developer Shift Up, this is their first console grade game. Before, they've been doing mobile sort of gacha style games that in a little bit of that sort of anime style. But the one that they're most famous for, I think, is one called Nick, which is also all about those butts.
Yeah,
makes sense.
So they've got a history,
a history of horniness.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's out April 26th, and honestly, I think that looks real good. Sonic Generations.
This is the one bit that I wanted to talk about,
yeah,
obviously, because it's Sonic.
Sonic and Shadow. Oh, no.
Sonic X Shadow Generations.
Right.
Yeah.
So me and Rob had the exact same thought about seeing this, which is like, we recently played another Sonic game that had a Shadow-themed 3 extra levels inserted into it, and that didn't go well.
No, so Sonic Forces had a free DLC called Episode Shadow, and I think we covered that in the video.
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah. Sonic Forces wasn't a great game in the first place, so like having the extra Shadow content that was worse.
And also was reused content in that game.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, because this is actually new content.
This is all brand new stuff. And like, Sonic Generations, having a remaster of Sonic Generations is the right call, because Sonic Generations is good.
But probably not. It's probably not going to be much of a remaster.
No, I don't know. I mean, what are they going to, they might do some texture detailing. But, well, in fairness, don't forget the console versions of Sonic Generations only ran at 30 FPS.
Well, sure.
So having a 60 FPS console version is an improvement. But, if you've been part of the PC master race, you've been playing that since it launched.
Yeah.
They haven't really said how much Shadow content is in this either.
Well,
is it a whole game's worth of extra content? No, it'll be a small addition.
I mean, you can tell how much content it's going to be by because this is Generations, by saying how many games Shadow has been a main character, a playable character in, which is about 4. So there'll be about 4 levels.
This is true, yeah.
Although
one of them looks very Forces-esque, right? Like he was the one they show where he's in that sort of twisty and the world is bending around him. Is that not him versus Infinite in some way? Or?
No, I think I get the feeling that they might do a bit of a more direct transition between the levels, and that might be the shift between the different levels.
Oh, what you think they're going to do? Like you're in one zone and transfer to another,
or
one?
It's a FMV sequence that happens between the levels.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's likely. Yeah, maybe that wasn't a playable segment.
But yeah, it's like the 4 games that Shadow has been a playable character in. But the trouble is that in the Generations context, that's not even spread out enough for the Generations, right?
Mm.
They're all in the same generation, I think. Well, no, actually, I guess Heroes would have been it's like Heroes, 06, Shadow the Hedgehog,
Sonic Adventure 2.
Sonic Adventure 2, that's it.
Is he playable in Forces? No, I don't think he is.
Apart from the DLC, no. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so technically Forces. And then he has the kart races.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, is that really it? Huh.
I mean, I'm sure I might have forgotten one. But
Yeah.
that seems to be those are the obvious main ones.
Yeah, he's not in Unleashed. Yeah, I mean 06, yeah, which you probably mentioned.
Yep.
But that's not worth.
Well, I mean, the 06 level in Generations of Sonic is fine.
Sure.
Because it's a Generations level. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just an aesthetic.
It's retooled.
But what I also said about this is like the thing that they won't do, but would have been really cool, is to port the 3DS, or not port, somehow basically make new levels based on the 3DS levels.
That would be
from
good.
3DS generations.
That would be really good. If it was like a Generations Plus.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they put all the levels in, but you can't just port those from the 3DS because it's a completely different style of gameplay. Well, not completely different, somewhat different.
Yeah. It would be a bit of work,
yes.
but that would be good. That would have been great.
But they won't.
They should have.
And they also won't make DLC for Generations like we kept saying they should have at the time.
Yeah, this is a bit of a shout that they're just not going to do it. Even think about doing a Generations 2.
Well,
because I don't even think that would be a bet. Like they could take. I don't even think they would have to. Even if they repeated zones, I guess is what I'm saying, that they used before. There's plenty of other ones to pick from, right? Like as well.
Yes. That's what we said about the DLC. They should have just made every level.
Because of course they would have to make another Green Hill Zone. Doesn't matter what Generations game they would make. They would have to be a Green Hill Zone.
They could pick one of the other Green Hills.
They could. Yeah, Emerald Hill, right, is the obvious choice.
Yes, from the earliest games,
from Sonic 2. Like Angel Island, I think would be kind of a rad thing for them to try and attempt, especially the Angel Island on fire, or do the
or just have that be a place halfway through the level. You just get into the fire zone.
There's plenty of things that I would love to see them do.
They did sort of do that in the chemical plant zone in Generations, right? When you go past a certain point, everything just fucking explodes.
Yeah, kind of.
Or Oil Ocean in Mania, obviously.
Oh yeah. I've got Mania to pull from as well now, which is good.
Oh, what? Like a Generations version of Press Gun or something?
Yeah.
That'd be fucking cool.
Yeah. Or the desert level, right? The desert level's kind of fun.
It's not a very good level in Mania. It's kind of cool aesthetic, but not a very good level.
Because I'm not sure, though, I would want them to pick, like, what was it, the last one? Monarch? Or,
Titanic Monarch.
Titanic Monarch, yeah. I don't want them to pull that. That's not a good level. But,
that's just another Death Egg, basically.
Yeah. That's just not as cool as Death Egg. They didn't do Death Egg in Generations. No.
Well, it's because they did, like, the first levels almost of the games rather than going for the end levels.
I guess they focused on the levels everyone would have played before, like, not playing the rest of it.
Yeah, probably.
Standard drop-off technique.
That would have been cool as well. Again, more like things they should have done in DLC. Do like a full pack of the last levels of all the games.
What was the
most of them would have been like Death Egg likes.
What was the watery zone from Sonic Rush? I would like to have seen a 3D version of that.
Or any Sonic Rush
levels. But that was in Generation 3DS.
Yes, it was.
That one.
I forget what that's called.
Yeah, it has the back-to-back music.
Yes,
which is rad. Man, there's so much they could do with it, and like Sega are just so stupid when it comes to Sonic. It's got to the point where even I'm saying that, and it's been too long now that it's just obvious that they don't know what the hell they're doing. It took an outsider to make the one good Sonic game in years,
and then then they tried to repeat that and it didn't work.
Yeah, Sonic Superstars doesn't appeal. And in fairness, we haven't given Frontiers a chance yet. There's probably some redeeming stuff from Frontiers, but
I'm sure we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, man,
that's enough Sonic talk for this podcast, as always.
Yeah, that's enough Sonic for today.
Okay,
Judas. Hey, do you remember that there BioShock?
Yeah.
Do you want another one of those, but in space?
Well,
do I?
Maybe in space.
It looked a bit in space.
Where it's got this, it's already
got a vacuum outside of a glass window.
Sure, that could be I guess they're already clearly leaning into the like dimension jumping aspects of BioShock. Where it's like, we have to save you from save you from yourself, probably.
Yeah. So this is not related to BioShock in any way, but it is.
But it's made by Ken Levine.
So it probably is actually related to BioShock.
Yeah, so it can't.
So it is Ken Levine.
It is Ken Levine. It's his studio. It's what they've been working on all this time.
So that's why it looks like BioShock. Okay.
But even the character design, right? The lady they show looks a lot like Catherine, right? Yep. It's the same art style,
and then probably will turn out to be Catherine.
Yeah. There probably will be a lighthouse. Yep. So they'll just throw that in somewhere.
There's always a lighthouse,
and there's always a girl. I mean, I'm kind of down for it, if I'm honest, because it's been long enough since Bioshock Infinite. And I did enjoy those games. I always felt they would like never quite hit their stride, right? There was always something that didn't feel quite right. Especially like the PC version had weird physics problems in the first Bioshock game. The second game, well, I mean, it was fun, but it wasn't quite as good. And Bioshock Infinite had combat kind of felt off. Although I loved where its story ended up. I think that was really good. But didn't really fulfill the potential. Bioshock never felt like it really fulfilled its full potential to me. Great ideas, just not quite hitting it. Still good games, but not perfect. So maybe they give it another go. I can't. It's I don't know. Seems like it might be. It could be good. Could be good. Judas. Dragon's Dogma 2 looks a lot like Monster Hunter. I guess it is a Capcom game, but it looks more like a Monster Hunter game than it does a RPG. I actually don't know a lot about Dragon's Dogma 1, but I just looked at it. I thought, oh, is this a new Monster Hunter world? Oh no, it's not. It's not. It's Dragon's Dogma. That's out in March. I guess Monster Hunter fans might be secretly happy with it. I don't know.
I don't know about that. Monster Hunter is a very specific game mechanic game.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a World 2.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're probably due to make another actual full Monster Hunter at this point.
Because Monster Hunter World was crazy popular, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and even I was tempted to play it at one point, but then it fell off Game Pass. And it's just like, well, I'm glad I didn't start that. Rise of the Ronin. Rise of the Ronin. It's
Rise of the Ronin.
Team Ninja are doing a follow-up. Well, it's not really a follow-up to their Neo series, but it very much looks like they're taking what they've learned from the last two Neo games and then go, well, we can probably open world this a bit, bring it somewhere between Elden Ring and Ghost of Tsushima and go like find a middle ground. That's what it looks like. I'm up for some samurai. It looks good. People like those Neo games. So I see good things. That's also out in March, so real soon. I like its time period as well. It's like set in the 1800s, just as the like.
Right, so you're probably going to get some flintlock pistols and whatnot to go with your samurai sword.
100%. They've already shown it. So like, it's stuff is already on the way out. There are like, standard brick and mortar like towns turning up in Japan and things. So it's an interesting time period. Until Dawn is getting a remaster, and I gotta say this looked bad because I don't think Until Dawn is a bad game. I've played it. I didn't play it all the way through, but I was playing it in a sort of like party context with people. We were all making the choices together, which was kind of fun.
Right.
But at the time, it was pretty graphically impressive. And in the trailer for this, I think they made the right choice by showing just the environments for most of the trailer, because then as soon as they showed a bit of character animation, it was like, oh god, that's dated it quite a bit. That doesn't look right.
So like they updated the graphics, but not like they just loaded up the old rigging.
I'm assuming they must have done, yeah. Like, or because otherwise they would have had to have like maybe they didn't have enough mocap data to actually like redo it all, or no, because they weren't going to get the actors back in, right?
Well, so, yeah, I guess.
Anyway, that's happening. And then we got a really long look at Death Stranding 2.
Just as you would expect from Death Stranding.
I mean,
this really long something.
This game looks as... I'm trying to work out if it's like at what level of baffling it is right now. As in, is it more baffling than Death Stranding 1, or because we know what Death Stranding 1 is? Like, does it actually? Does that help us get a picture for what this game is? So, idea is they're no longer in America. They've kind of done their work there. The chiral network is up and functioning. You've connected America, but now they're elsewhere, presumably Europe. I don't know, doing their work. But bad guy Hess is about having fights with robots that sound like babies, but his weapon is a guitar for some reason. he's back. So presumably you're doing the same job, I guess, is what they're saying, is what they're trying to set up. You're still trying to connect fake Iceland together, but somewhere else. And you're now no longer called Bridges. They've got a slightly different name. It's called Drawbridges for no reason at all. But your name is still Bridges. So like
I thought you were called Porter.
You were called Sam Porter Bridges in the first game.
Oh, Porter Bridges. Sorry, was that double barreled?
It was. Well, I don't know. Yeah,
or was that
just
middle
a middle
name Porter? Yeah. Sam Porter Bridges.
And your job was a porter. That was what they called the job as well. It's like it's so
I know.
Stupid. I
thought Sam Porter was a porter, but no, he was called Bridges as well.
Yeah,
because he built bridges, I guess.
And he worked for Bridges.
And he worked for Bridges.
He was a porter who worked for Bridges.
And he left notes for people saying, "Thanks for the bridges."
Thanks for the bridges, man. So the actual game very much still looks like that, as far as I can tell. But
does it look like?
Fragile's
much different in terms of landscape, or because
it looked a bit rocky and Icelandic.
The first game, it didn't look, which is what the first game looked like, even though it was supposed to be America, right?
Yep, nothing like America.
We're just hoping that there's going to be a twist where it's like that wasn't America at all.
Yeah, nobody knows what America is anymore. Fragile's back, sporting a fancy new set of neck hands.
I love the neck hands. The blue neck hands.
They're so strange.
Weird.
So they don't you first see them and they're acting like her mask, right? So they clasp over her mouth. But later on in them, they sort of act of their own accord to light a cigarette for her.
Yeah, which is so necessary, obviously. Oh, man, that is such a Kojima thing. That's brilliant.
I know.
There's the stupid neck hands.
There's some fantastic ideas in this trailer, but and honestly, like it's the stupidity of it all that like that's what draws you in. But then you remember it's a cocking walking game, like, and just how much of your time was actually spent just trundling around really slowly.
Well, wasn't there part of it being like, were they talking about America in the trailer where they're saying it's
America's
sorted out, but
supposedly,
it's all like robots and drones delivering things. Does that extend to the new setting where there's more automation of the actual delivery
my guess is that the robots can only function with the chiral network in place. Which isn't yet in place over here. But maybe that's something that opens up as you start like making the network bigger, so you can start organizing deliveries rather than doing them yourself. Maybe. I mean, there was always a system that eventually that I think it wasn't there at launch, but it got updated in where you could get a buddy bot in the first game. I think that got patched in later, and you could send it on missions.
Right.
But its chance of success was so low that it was often not really worth doing unless it was on a super cheap, safe route like near that you knew it was going to succeed to get some sort of benefit from. It looks bloody weird. I mean, there's a bit of me that was just I don't know, the dad nature that's just been forced upon me now.
You're a dad now.
I'm a dad now. Yeah, it's just like things change, and it's just like when Sam was like holding Lou, and there's like the implication that Lou is dead or something. Like BB, I guess, Bridge Baby. Spoilers, I suppose, for the first game. And it's sort of implied that he's dead, but there's scenes with him. A bit of me was like got a little emotionally invested, and I'm like, oh god, what's happened to me?
I used to not care about children dying.
Exactly. It's not my child.
Yeah. Man. It's like I'm so intrigued, but also I kind of know what that first game was about, so it's
right.
And the weirdness was absolutely its strength, but its gameplay for me wasn't.
It's ironic, isn't it? Because it will be what you expect, which is a lot of things that you don't expect.
Yeah, But I'm hoping that translates to the game part of it. Like there is enough different there. But I doubt it.
Who knows? I mean,
yeah, maybe it is different. I mean, they've already shown like there's still bridges you build. They showed like a flood, I guess, which was kind of cool looking. Like there was water spreading for some reason that was destroyed a bridge.
Water filling up holes.
Water filling up holes. Yep. I mean,
the universal game mechanic.
I mean, I guess this is the ultimate put things in the holes game in some way.
Yeah, pretty much. You're carrying a thing from one place to another to put it into a hole.
Yep. I mean, literally a hole, right? Because you didn't see the people. Like they were all holograms. So why was that opening scene like where they're showing Sam his room? Why was Sam all black and white and the room in colour? Like, what's going on there? And why did Elle Fanning have mysterious strands coming off her? Or does everyone have mysterious strands coming off her? Is that just a thing in the universe? I can't remember.
Is she being puppeteered by something sinister?
Is that a thing in the universe I just can't remember? Probably, because there's a lot of things about that game I can't remember. Because there's just so much.
I think that was meant to look sinister. I'm not sure, but I think it was. Yeah, because she was like standing eavesdropping, wasn't she? Or what?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. No Mads Mikkelsen though. They're done with the veteran character,
supposedly, seemingly. I mean,
BB's dad. Oh, I can't remember what bloody happened in that game.
You got your Troy Baker ridiculous sword thing.
It's a guitar. It's a guitar. It's a katana.
Katana, yeah. Katana.
You could have that one, internet. Someone's probably said that before. I don't know.
Probably.
Death Stranding.
Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I don't know. I know the first game was all about the beach in some ways, but on the beach just sounds like it's a party. Like, there's a Death Stranding on the beach, guys. Let's go play with some dead whales. I don't know. 2025. Not out this year, but it's got a year tagged to it at least. And then I'm just gonna say Fizzint.
Fizzint. Because people want Kojima to make more Metal Gear Solid and he can't. So Fizzint.
Fizzint, yeah. In collaboration with Columbia Film Studios.
Not the country.
Not Columbia the country, but Columbia Film Studios and Sony. They are...
Right. So we'll see if he can pull off the whole Quantum Break thing of blending live action film, TV, whatever, with a game.
I mean, get ready for 2030, guys, because when this eventually comes out, it's going to be a thing.
It's going to be a multimedia event.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even started, right? This isn't even in pre-production or anything like that. It's just an idea in Kojima's head, and I think it's stupid for them to even mention it now. But at least there's room for them. There's time for them to change the name if Fizzint is the name.
Well, like any code name.
Yeah.
But then that means they'll probably keep it.
I wonder if Fizzint is like they're calling it Fizzint because it actually is two words, like physical interrogation or something.
Well, physical intel.
Character in Metal Gear called SIGINT because SIGINT stands for signal intelligence. Yeah, like electronic eavesdropping is referred to as SIGINT.
And I would imagine, even though this isn't Metal Gear, but like if you think about the context of Metal Gear, physical things kind of important in terms of like bypassing signals and whatnot. If you wanted to transport intelligence, I bet like. It's one of those like anachronism things where it's like the best way to secure your intelligence is to put it on a physical disc and carry it to wherever you're going.
Right. Maybe.
Yeah. Because there's SIGINT and then there's like human intelligence is humint. I think that's a thing.
A delicious humint.
Yeah, humint.
Okay.
A delicious humans.
Just for me.
Humid Imperials. Except not Imperial, hopefully.
A special branch of the of Star Wars that they haven't covered yet, the human department. It's always very fragrant in that room. That was the state of play. That was what they ended with.
Sony. And then bonus Final Fantasy VII entire state of play. I mean, I guess
I've done pretty good, like staying media blackout on FF7, honestly, because I do really want to play those games. But there's been a bit. I mean, I could play it on my PS4 at any time. Well, I'd have to re-up my PS Plus, I suppose, because I've got it on PS Plus, but which I'm currently not subscribed to. But they made the thing where they like obviously released Intergrade, right, which is the better version of it.
Yeah.
So I probably want to play that instead.
Right, where they fixed all the weird issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and added a whole bunch of content, right?
Yeah.
It has the whole Yuffie story added on.
Yeah. Well, I watched some of this and it looks good. I think they're doing more justice to it. I still don't know the whole, they changed the story or whatever in the first one, so I don't know how that ties in. But I mean, it looks like, it's got freaking gold saucer or whatever. It's got all the shit you want.
Yeah.
So
I can't remember if they've said or not whether it's actually like this is now just a two-parter, right? That this will be the last one.
This kind of looks like the rest of the game to me.
Yeah, it does look like that.
But that was kind of the problem with that game originally, where it's like you had the Midgar, which took a long time, and you were just in Midgar, and then you went out and you did like the whole world as part 2.
Yeah. But I guess that's what they're doing again.
But in the original, the whole world as part 2, like it was still kind of split up. You basically had the pre-airship section and the post-airship section, basically.
Yeah, have they shown the airship?
Not that I've seen, but I've seen even less of this, probably.
Yeah, so I'm kind of glad I've managed to stay a little bit out because I do want to tackle it. They look great. And I played the demo for FF7.
Yeah.
The first one, and I loved it.
That was good, yeah. That was the worry with that one, but I think they fixed it with the Intergrade or whatever, was like that there was a lot of effort put into some sections and less in others, but I think they fixed it up.
Bit me kind of always hoped that the exclusivity would drop, right, and it would come to Xbox, and I could play it on my Series X, before I get a PS5, which is getting closer and closer every day. It's getting to that point.
I'm sure it's going to happen. Yeah.
It's getting to that point. I've got to play that God of War, and I've got to play that Spider-Man, both of them, and I've got to play that Death Stranding too.
Apparently,
yeah. Yeah, there's too much mounting. I really want to play that Ratchet and Clank, honestly. There's a bunch of stuff on PS5 that's now building up for me to might make it a purchase. I'll pay off this. Got to rebuild a little bit after buying a car, honestly. But there's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but yeah, in summary, that looks like continues to be a good remake going on with part 2.
Does
I'm
indeed.
sure that will do well. Who got that for the League? Someone get that from the League? That was you.
Was it me?
Rob? Yeah, I reckon you're going to do well there. Yeah, I think you may be in on a winner there.
I need it.
Yeah, claw it back.
I need it. I've effed it already. Another reason to potentially get a PS5, potentially now, is all this rumors flying around that Microsoft are going multi-platform or more multi-platform. Sony's have started dipping their toe into PC right over the last few years.
Yeah,
but this is more than that because Microsoft have been in PC for a while, and a lot of their stuff does release on PC as well as Xbox. I think pretty much all of their internal studio stuff comes to PC now, right? But yeah, they're talking about games like Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is the interesting run for this because it's been kind of data mined that they've got store-specific shirts that were added to the game pretty recently, and they were right on the money for the ones that were for Steam and Epic Game Store, where the game is already available for PC. But there were some other ones that look suspiciously like they might be for PlayStation and Switch versions. They had the right colorings and the right sort of implications in their designs. The probability of that coming might be pretty high. And the other one they're talking about is Starfield, and I think that Starfield's an obvious choice, right? I think that started development before the Bethesda buyout.
Well,
right?
That's the thing. At this point, those two games specifically are that's not necessarily Microsoft going multi-platform. That's Bethesda going back to multi-platform.
Yeah, they're letting Bethesda do that. And
I did see a further rumor that they might do Gears of War, and then that would be a Microsoft exclusive.
That would be quite a coup, yeah, if that happened.
Not that I care about Gears of War anymore. No,
the last two have not been as good as the first three. in my eyes. It'd be nice to see them return to form. But also, Gears 4 and 5 pretty old now. Get your sales out of it, right? Like, I don't think they're a console driver. So it's like, yeah, sure, go for it. Put them out elsewhere. Question is, does this hurt Microsoft in the long term? Does this mean Microsoft is considering getting out of the console game?
Or maybe they're conceding defeat on this generation and they'll be back or something.
I mean, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like, because obviously, like, the growth in studios has to be because they want to claw back. It has to be because they want to claw back console.
Yeah, it's got to be, right? Yeah,
some console. What's the word I'm looking for? Market share. But obviously, that's not going to pan out in the near term, right? They can't. I mean, but they've had a lot of studios for a while. Surely that must be starting to pay dividends now. Surely.
See, around E3 time this year. Not E3, obviously, but
yeah,
around that time this year.
Games Timber. Gamegust?
Goon.
It'll be Goon, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, because Game Pass would have to come with it. Because
well, yeah,
Game Pass is too good. Game Pass is too good. And the PlayStation offering just doesn't match it.
Yeah, but that's why PlayStation wouldn't want that, though. Surely, you don't want to make your bad product even more obviously bad by having this direct comparison on the same system.
Yeah, they would never allow it on PlayStation. They wouldn't allow Game Pass on PlayStation.
No,
I mean, I don't think they allow
EA. Allow Steam on PlayStation.
I don't think PlayStation allow EA Play or anything like that on there, or Ubisoft Plus, whatever that thing's called. Is it called Ubisoft? I have no idea. Whatever Ubisoft are calling themselves these days. Yeah, Sony don't want any of that. Really, I think that PlayStation Plus is like only there reluctantly.
Yeah,
to
try. Seems like it.
Yeah, it's like, well, they're doing it, so we better do it. Yeah, so I hope it doesn't break that. I hope Microsoft don't bow out. But it's hard. As an Xbox man, it's becoming harder and harder to justify, right? Like Microsoft's position compared to Sony. Sony just keep knocking it out of the park with their
actual games.
With their exclusives. You can't refute it.
Yeah. I mean, compared to the old days, it's not tons of games, but the games that they are massive, right?
Yeah, they're quality products and big and good. I wouldn't necessarily say they're interesting all of the time. I mean, Death Stranding is the obvious standout, I guess, but it's but they're definitely quality products. I mean, like Last of Us Part 2, the remaster is apparently like topping UK charts.
Yeah. I mean,
for a game that's not that old.
Yeah. I guess that's because that's a little bit, even though it's, they put a lot of work into that game, it's a little bit cynical with the TV
show
and like
and just the number of re-releases, right? It's like Last of Us has had 3 re-releases now, well, 2 re-releases now already. Where's that Uncharted love, guys? Anyway,
I've got Uncharted 4 plays fine on the.
I'm sure it plays absolutely fine. Yeah, they don't go back and remaster those games as often. Like we've had one remaster, right, and that was the Nathan Drake collection.
Yeah,
and I'm not even sure 4 was remastered for that. I think I'm not even sure any of them are really remastered. Right, they were just like up-resed.
Yeah, you can like them. Yeah.
Anywho, yeah, and I mean, to that end, I think Microsoft are probably looking at this generation and going, well, PlayStation's outselling us 2-1, so the rumors go. So the figures seem to suggest. Maybe we just need a little bit of a money top up. Let's put our games out over there. Wouldn't be the first time Microsoft have put products out elsewhere, though. Like, it does happen periodically. Yeah. Minecraft.
Do you think they'll get desperate and try and put Halo Infinite on PlayStation.
God, no, I don't think that'll happen.
Because anyone wants that.
No, exactly.
Halo Infinite has continued to be kind of done.
Halo Master Chief Collection on PlayStation would be amazing,
Well, sure.
but that won't happen.
Yeah, wouldn't that be
So
something?
that would be incredible.
Well, I hear rumors that the last few updates to Infinite have been good.
I still keep considering just playing that on my PC just to see what Halo's like playing on a PC.
Right. Oh yeah, because you've still got your Game Pass, right?
Yeah.
So you could play the campaign.
Yep, I sure could. Well, only the campaign because I don't think the multiplayer's on Game Pass.
Well, no, it's because it's free.
Well, that's what I mean.
So
I don't think
matter.
I don't think it's on the system though. Like I don't think you can access it through that storefront.
Oh, right.
As far as I've seen, anyway. I haven't exactly looked that hard at Halo.
Well, as far as I know, if you pull Infinite off Game Pass, it'll have the multiplayer in it.
Well, but what I'm saying is that the thing on Game Pass specifically says it's the campaign. It's like the box art or whatever.
I wonder if it's just the unlock for it. Yeah, because they did separately download. Like you downloaded the Infinite client,
right?
And I think you could pick whether you wanted multiplayer or campaign installed. So maybe that just unlocks campaign for you.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual situation is, but maybe I'll get around to that at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I mean, I've played Halo with mouse and keyboard before.
Sure. Halo 2, or the old
CE.
Yeah, jeez.
Which was that was
not a great port.
It was a bad port, and even at the time was like a hella janky hacked version as well. Also, which probably didn't help. Because that was the one that was only meant to run on Vista, but then it got hacked to make it not run on Vista.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I think that's the one that I played.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I played a hacked version on XP.
Yep.
I never had a Vista machine. No, wait. Halo 2 might have been the Vista only one.
Maybe.
Which also wasn't a great version.
No.
But that's all fixed now in MCC, supposedly. Yeah. What else is going on? I mean, I'm going to shout this out because I think Spec Ops: The Line is one hell of a game, and everyone should probably play through it once.
But you can't.
But yeah, unless you can get hold of a physical copy of it, it's you're a bit boned because it's one of those games
because they foolishly used licensed music.
They used licensed music, yeah, and unless they want to re-up their license, I suppose, it has eventually expired. I mean, it's taken 12 years. I think that was 2012, something like that. It's taken 12 years for it to expire, so they got a pretty good license for it. But
or it was a thing that. What was the song?
Oh, I can't remember. There's a few. I think there's some Hendrix in there. No, I can't remember.
How much?
It's definitely like American rock songs,
sure.
right? It's
that would make sense.
That sort of vibe. But yeah, I can't remember what else is in there. But yeah, this is increasingly becoming a problem, isn't it? Just games that just can't be sold anymore because of the music they include. And it's a bummer. It's especially a bummer when it hits these. It makes people think it must be loads of rhythm games that would be impossible to remake, right? That's why that retread of Frequency kind of struggled a bit because they didn't have the budget to go and get licenses for big tunes.
That's why the remakes of Tony Hawk were so not as good, but
weird.
Still fine.
Yeah, I mean, at some point I do really want to play, get around to playing Tony Hawk 1+2, but
it's great.
I think it's another thing I might have to re-up my PS Plus for. I think I got it through that, but yeah, I don't know. This bums me out when stuff like this happens. You would have thought there'd be some sort of deal to do this. Is this a problem for the movie industry as well? Can they not sell DVDs of a film if the songs that are in the film?
I think the problem is because it's not physical. I'm sure if they continue to sell discs this whole time, it would probably be fine, maybe. But because it is a purely digital thing, that license expires.
License is different. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? Would that
Yeah, it is weird.
Do you think that ever stops, like, Netflix can't have this film because the distributor of the film can't distribute it to anyone because of the music licenses have expired?
It is weird.
I don't know if I've ever heard that happening, but
yeah.
It basically means that music licensing for video games is messed up.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
They should have been making different deals 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But at the time, no one thought video games were real, and then they became real.
It's been like bigger than films in terms of revenue for a long time now.
I'm sure executives didn't think so.
Yeah.
I'm sure they still thought it was some weird thing on the internet.
I mean, you can see why, right? Because it's like, it doesn't, even like video gamey questions, it's not mainstream knowledge, right? Compared to films and TV.
I was thinking about that just the other day, whenever I hear my parents doing like the Radio Times quizzes and they're doing like the music quiz, it's like, when are we going to get that for videos? Oh, we're not going to.
It's never going to happen. Yeah.
Even though we are full of this ridiculous amount of general knowledge about video games, and we can easily do one of those quizzes like that if it was about video games.
Sure.
It's just not going to happen.
I mean,
that's true. It's not around on your average pub quiz, is it? Unlike music and...
No, I mean, it does come up every now and then on University Challenge, right? There will be like a video game question. And sometimes it's about like developers and publishing houses and stuff like, oh, who developed this game, or who won this award or something for a game, and it's like, oh, actually, sometimes one of those can be a bit of a deep cut, and I'm like, yes, University Challenge, good on you. But most of the time, it's like, what are the power ups in Mario Kart? Like, and you're like, God damn it, we could do better than this, guys. I mean, I think there was one about Castlevania on Only Connect once. I was like, ooh, deep cut. Like, deep-ish cut. It's not really a deep cut, because we all know it, but, like, there was a little something. You're like, ooh. I mean, I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I tried that once, doing a video. Like, during lockdown and stuff like that, we would have, like, little quizzes with some of Gnome's friends. And I set a video game round.
Right.
But I did it by... I thought I was picking like lowest common denominator stuff.
But you weren't.
But no, it really didn't fly. Like they were still too hard. Like, people struggled with Yoshi as a character. Like, who is this?
I guess that is kind of relatively obscure in the Mario context.
I mean, it's not though. That's the thing.
But compared to just knowing about Mario,
yeah. Like if I showed Luigi, would they have got Luigi? Like, maybe that's the level I should have gone at, but. I literally showed it was a picture round, like, and I showed a picture of Rocket League that literally had the words Rocket League in the picture, and even Gnome didn't get it right. And it's like,
well, that's just a failure in visualizing the problem.
Which I thought. I mean, like, God of War nobody got that. It's like, yeah, it was a bit of a fail. And this was me, yeah, as I said, try to pick the biggest hitters. I probably might have got away with Last of Us now if I'd have done it again.
Wow, right? Yeah, but that's because it's come to TV.
Yeah, and even then, maybe Halo, like, because it would have had TV ads for the Paramount Plus series, maybe. Which I hear the second season isn't that bad.
But what?
Well, it could only be less bad than the first.
Anyway, yeah, what will it take, I suppose, to get games a bit more mainstream knowledge? Is it just we need to wait another whole generation?
Yeah. Till all the old people actually die for real.
Are we it? Are we the first mainstream video game generation?
Pretty much. But because old people cling on for an extra 30 years than they should, we don't get to do anything. We're just stuck.
They should all die now. What are they doing? Clinging on?
Well, they don't have to die. They just have to not influence culture, I guess.
Culture anymore. Okay, yeah. You're allowed to keep living. You're just not allowed to like put anything out into the world. You've got to be read only mode from now on.
I mean, you could still be ROMs. It's read only, man.
Read only, man. Read only.
Oh, bad.
Right. Is that the news?
Unless you want to talk about Epic X Disney.
whatever that actually is going to be apart from Fortnite.
I mean, isn't like Fortnite map becoming like the Disney Kingdom or something?
Because presumably you're not going to have any Disney characters shooting each other.
Well,
I mean, I did see the other day a pretty good. Like it was a video on Twitter of people like modding Mortal Kombat, so it had Disney characters in. So seeing Winnie the Pooh beat someone the fuck up was pretty funny.
Winnie the Pooh is public property or whatever.
Domain,
well, presumably not that depiction of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, not
right?
the Disney version, presumably.
I guess that's a matter of graphics. Like,
yes, yeah. I mean, they had the I can't remember her name, but the princess from Aladdin, Jasmine, right? I think she had Scorpion's moveset, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So yeah, there's the collaboration, but also Disney have invested $1.5 billion into Epic in terms of stake. So. I mean, I'm not sure how much that will actually influence them, but
I mean, gaming side aside, they're into Unreal because of the volume, right? And they use Unreal tech
presumably
to do all that.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah,
they're probably
while you're at it, might as well theme everything in Fortnite.
Yeah, they're probably Epic's biggest television customer, right? So
for sure.
Filmography customer.
Speaking of, I guess, Disney in video games and Epic, this is technically just something I was going to mention when I was talking about things I've played, but there's a Star Wars thing in Rocket League at the moment, get some car skins or whatever. But one of the things they put in is a goal explosion, which is the Sonic Mine. But it sucks because they've not turned up the base nearly high enough.
Oh, man.
It's really weak.
So
it could have been so cool.
So it's a very quiet.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's like, that's not nearly base. You've got to base boost that shit.
I mean, no, they don't need to base boost. And what they need to do is make the Sonic Mine like dull every other sound that's playing.
Well, sure, but there's not really any sound playing when you score a goal in Rocket League.
Wow. Oh, man, missed opportunity. That could be the best thing.
Well, I mean, it's not a missed opportunity, it's a failed opportunity. Oh. They hit the opportunity, but they didn't succeed in execution.
I guess.
But yeah. That's the Epic Disney deal trickling into Rocket League via Fortnite, I guess, because it's all the same thing now. Use your Rocket League skins in Fortnite because you apparently can.
Yeah.
Somehow. Anyway.
Can that be like what happens when I die in Fortnite? Can I have like the Sonic Mine going, wow?
We'll just make that a weapon in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Destroy all those buildings. That would be pretty cool. Way overpowered for the context of that game, but pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah. Finally, because there is more, a prolific Sega leaker tells us that there's not one but two Crazy Taxi games in development. One of which is a reboot, which was the footage we saw at Sega's weird announcement of whatever the new era of Sega is.
Sure.
But also there's a remake of some description in the works. I don't know if Crazy Taxi needs a remake, but like a remastered collection of the previous games would be good. But I don't really know what a Crazy Taxi remake really would be. Those games are so tiny, right?
A Crazy Taxi remake would be this other new game that they're already making. They're already doing that.
Yeah. I'm not so familiar with Crazy Taxi 3. That's the one I don't really know that well. But, there's that. Also, don't expect one of those games until 2027, apparently, so we're a way off. And apparently that new Jet Set Radio, about the same date. They're sort of aiming to hit 2027, so ooh-wee, maybe this is an announcement that was slightly too early.
Yeah.
Yeah. A while away.
And that was the news.
And that's the news. And now it's time for what you've been playing.
Oh, wait, hang on. Zach's got some bonus news.
What bonus minor news? I mean, I guess we can mention that for some reason, I guess just because of I was going to say peer pressure, but it's more like peer influence, I guess, because it's not really pressure. But basically...
The nice form of peer pressure, like a peer suggestion.
Yeah. But basically, most of the main content creators of City Skylines are coming out to say how bad City Skylines 2 is. Basically, one of them did it, and then everyone else was like, "Oh, the floodgates have opened. Let's all come in and say it's real bad."
Wait, so what? You mean the actual developers?
No, the content creators, like the
you mean YouTube
content creators? Yeah. They're like all saying, they're all basically not going to continue playing City Skylines 2 mostly at this point until everything gets fixed. Modding has been announced to be like March at the earliest, and that will be a beta version of the modding interface. I mean, there are already mods by like official modding access or whatever. It's going to theoretically start being beta tested in March. So yeah, that game has reached the point where everyone has decided to shit on it, and that, you know, maybe that will cause something to happen.
There was have they come out and said whether like their content was potentially AI made, like hence the teeth problem?
I don't think there's been anything said about that, and that's not an AI problem. That's like a non-AI problem. Well, I mean, it's like someone wasn't working hard enough.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There was this suggestion that like they used AI to make some of their models, and of course AI went to town making those models, and then they didn't have a human come and de-triangle it, I suppose, so it was optimized for the game and cull out unnecessary detail. I don't know how true that is, but
I didn't think about that.
No, or if it's just sounds like there wasn't very much cure. If even if that was true, even if humans did make all that content, clearly like there wasn't an experienced game designer or game producer sort of overlooking all this stuff and being like, oh good god, we can't possibly run a game with that much.
Well, all there was, and you know, the theory goes that Paradox forced them to release this super early because of other games doing badly for Paradox at the end of last year. Which would make sense because that's what publishers do.
Yeah, so like give it a couple years and maybe it'll get optimized, but
maybe.
Yeah.
Although
its failing state might kill it quicker than.
Well, yeah. The problem is, like, if no one's playing it, there's going to be less, less chance that they'll continue supporting it, because the whole point of Paradox is to make DLC, right? And if there's not a market for that, then they'll move on. And also, as many of these YouTube people were pointing out, like, really the problems with these Skylines that they care about is not, how badly optimized it is. It's like how the game works, which is maybe not great in several ways. And that is the kind of thing that might not be fixed.
Yeah.
And then
that's a bit more serious.
The other minor bit of news I wanted to point out, which is a real dumb thing because it's not like this is a new thing, but Ubisoft referred to the upcoming pirate ship game Skull and Bones as a quadruple A game.
Is that just like because it's been in development for that long?
I don't know what the fuck they think it is, because apparently
because it starts looping back around to being shit if you keep adding A's.
Well, that's the thing. So like,
well, I mean,
yes,
people don't seem too impressed with this beta.
Yes. So like the thing is, apparently this isn't a new thing, not only even for Ubisoft. Like, Ubisoft have said this before. Apparently they called Beyond Good and Evil 2 a quadruple A game at some point. Whatever that would have meant for a game that barely existed.
Well, yeah, and nobody really knows how much budget they actually really put behind it.
But also, supposedly...
If quadruple A exists, it's Grand Theft Auto and maybe Cyberpunk, I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to put Last of Us maybe in that category, but...
Yeah, maybe.
Well...
But so supposedly at some point Microsoft may have also said something was quadruple A as well. So this is maybe not a new thing for people to say, but obviously when it's Ubisoft, it's like, what the fuck? And of course, the context of this, of Yves Guillemot saying this, was of course a investor call. And it seemed like what this investor who was asking the question actually sort of knew what the shit was going on, because he was like, why are we releasing Skull and Bones for $70? Wouldn't it be better as a free-to-play since you're going to the live service model? And to which the response is, no, it's such a massive, huge-ass game. It's quadruple A. Obviously, it's going to be worth $70.
Lies.
Was he panicking? Was he panicking? It sounds like a panic.
Who knows? But yeah, that's like... And then, as soon as that conversation leaked, everyone was like, "God damn it, Ubisoft, what are you doing, you idiots?"
4A.
It's. I mean, I don't think any live service game could count as quadruple A if we're even entertaining the idea that quadruple A is a thing.
No, I don't think we're there. I don't think there's any. Yeah, I mean, Rockstar aside, Rockstar is the obvious choice. You're right, Dan. Like, of one developer that spends more time and effort and money than anybody else to do what they do. If there was going to be someone that we'd call that, it would be them.
And that's what they were trying to do with CD Projekt Red. Were trying to do was kind of reach for that, right? Not quite, but with Cyberpunk, yeah.
I mean, they didn't do it, but
they tried.
I mean, they might have got it to that place in like classic CD Projekt Red style.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know, I'm hearing a lot. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure.
The positivity around Cyberpunk now is interesting, and I don't think I think when I played it, I might have and I left it quite a while before I played it, but it sounds like I might have still have come in too early.
Yeah.
And that the systems are improved quite a bit since then.
It seems like Cyberpunk is not as extremely, but it's now slipped into the internet lore as being a No Man's Sky equivalent, basically.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can put it in that category in my head.
Cool.
I mean, not for Skylines.
Well, not yet. Maybe
not
it will.
For Skull and Bones. I mean, the one takeaway about Skull and Bones I heard that like really stuck in my head was like, I played Skull and Bones. It made me want to play Sea of Thieves.
Yep.
Right.
This is another game
Skull and
that
Bones
apparently
was just an offshoot of Assassin's Creed 4, wasn't it? That was the point.
Pretty much.
It was supposed to be a small game, like a little
I think
$20 game or something.
I thought it started life as like a multiplayer variant of that, right? And then I think the early demos of that weren't met particularly well, so they put it back in the cooker
for like way too long.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
I mean, I assume it's got, for them to justify $70, it's got to have a pretty meaty campaign element, right? So, and if it doesn't, what are you doing?
Yes, well, we'll see.
If it doesn't,
because
it's a super risky venture these days to go in. Like, if it is a multiplayer focused game, and that's what they're going in with a price tag, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. You can't do that anymore. You can't just go in. You can't be a Quake 3 anymore.
And also not if you're then going to continue to potentially sell more shit for it in a live service fashion.
Yeah. I mean, even Overwatch realized you couldn't do that anymore. Like, Overwatch was the last one that managed to pull it off, really.
Yeah.
Full price game that was multiplayer only. And then Overwatch 2 happened and no one was happy about that, and that's free. So, or free to start, I suppose.
Yeah.
Speaking of like it making people want to play Sea of Thieves, there seems to be a lot of that at the moment. I heard that like I saw a headline, I don't know how long it lasted, but there were more like active players on Arkham Knight than there were on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
Oh, wow.
When it launched.
People went back and
like a week after it launched, people were like, I want to play this good game.
I mean, we haven't really talked about it because I still don't see the appeal. It's like,
I noticed that
I was watching some
I think no one picked it for the league, right? The Suicide Squad, because we all knew that was not going to go well.
Yeah,
the vibe wasn't there. Well, yeah, I sort of look at the footage of that, and a bit of me thinks a lot of people say like the actual like core building to building, flying through the air, shooting stuff kind of works like as if you took it out of the context of it being a DC Suicide Squad game, the core combat mechanics are good, but it's a disappointment that it's a DC. The DC wrapping and the Suicide Squad characters, they're just reduced to guys with guns, and even the gadgetry isn't all that interesting by the looks of it. It's not all. Yeah, it's disappointing in that respect. It is just a looter shooter. But also, like, I look at it and I think, man, Sunset Overdrive, that was a better game. And that's capturing the similar sort of vibe. Man, Sunset Overdrive got a bit of a raw deal when it came out. I still think that game is better than it. Better than the vibe it got when it released. Go and play it now on Game Pass.
Yeah. Another thing that I've seen a couple of times in that list and been like, yeah, maybe.
It's a good game. And it's the last thing Insomniac did before they went and made Spider-Man, you know. One time they made something for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And not Sony. Yeah.
And then they went to Sony and didn't look back.
And got pretty much bought. I mean, they have been bought, haven't they? They are Sony owned now. Yeah. Is that the news?
Yeah, it's like what you've been playing.
That's like this whole podcast is news.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I haven't got anything to talk about other than Yakuza. Like, that's literally all I've been playing.
And how much you need to talk about Yakuza, considering how much you've talked about it previously.
Well, yeah, I don't actually know how much I need to talk about it, because it's like I've got to the point where I've had a single story hint about the two characters crossing over, right. And it's even then it wasn't spoken. It's like there was just a visual reveal of something at the end of Kiryu's last story segment that I played, and I'm just like, oh. I don't really know how it works or how it even fits in, but there's just a little bit of the story starting to overlap. I'm getting to the point where I can now make some serious bills with Kiryu as well, which is just as well because like
all the upgrades are getting expensive.
His skill tree is hella expensive. But in order to get to that point, I've basically the last 5 hours or something of game time, I've just not been progressing the story, and I've just been doing side stuff.
Right.
Just to try and get my revenue up, and it's been good, but it's not like necessarily. I don't feel like it's been as zany or as funny as some of the other Yakuza games. And by that, right. I mean it's like it's still a pretty high. It's still doing it at a pretty high level, but it's still not hitting the Kiwami level for me. It's still not hitting that and Kiwami 2's level of comedy in places. There is one thing that probably has my favorite animation in the whole game. That is, so you can go to this. It's also the creepiest part of the game, because they really started leaning into the. It was around this era of Yakuza game where they started leaning hard into the. We like girls,
butts.
We like butts. We like bikinis, that kind of element of it. So there's this game in there called the Telephone Club. Because it's the 80s, yeah. Where apparently a telephone club was where like men would go into this club and they'd pay for a certain amount of time, and girls would ring in to the telephone club to have conversations. I don't know if that was a real thing or not, but whatever. It's how it works here. So how it actually plays out is like Kiryu is trying to chat up these ladies that are ringing in. Right. And that works out by like it asking you a question, there being like a series of like answers like moving around the screen in bubbles, and you've got to try and shoot them in a really awkward way to like answer the question in a specific way. But what's behind all of that is a blurry version of what Kiryu thinks the girl looks like.
Okay, great.
So as you answer certain questions, that starts like becoming more into focus. But it is just a girl just sort of like really zoomed in, just sort of lounging around in a bikini. And it's like, okay,
this is very 90s video focused.
A little bit, yeah. This is a little creepy. But the best thing about the whole sequence is when Kiryu answers the phone in the first place. So you're sitting there in the booth and there's just this timer ticking down, and obviously there's a sudden quick time event to answer the phone. And because he's Kiryu, he doesn't just answer the phone. He like flings it into the air, and there's a slow mo as the coil of the phone cord is like just like hanging in the air for a bit, and it's all really dramatic. And then it just sort of stops, and he's very slow. He just goes. Moji moji. Like it's so moji, dumb, moji. And I love that, like that sort of like juxtaposition of Kiryu being Kiryu and then just very calmly answering a phone. It's great. It's all that stupid stuff. Like there's stories associated, sub stories associated. I've only done a couple of them where he ends up then meeting the girl, and of course something bad happens. What like the last one I did was I guess even creepier still, and that like they turned around and they basically had a man's head on a girl's body, and but then she was like, she does this animation where it's like a tiger clawing at him, and then it just faded to black, and then it came back up, and they were outside a hotel, and Kiryu said, "I'm quite ashamed."
Okay.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, that's gone places. I love these games. They're so stupid. They're so stupid. They continue to be stupid. I tried engaging with its cat fighting betting thing as well. Yeah, also, slightly creepy element, which as I think I mentioned before, has like assets and animations lifted from the Beetle game.
Yeah.
That was in Kiwami 1. Or Kiwami lifted the assets from this to make its Beetle fighting. I don't know which way around it was. I've lost track. But yeah, that sucks. It's just like it's basically rock paper scissors, but it feels, which is exactly what the Beetle game was, but it really feels like it's cheating against you here. Like the probabilities just don't seem to work out in your favor at all. You lose almost all the time, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So I probably won't engage with that system very much. It's not just because it's creepy and I can't do it with Gnome in the room, but but also because I don't know what the bloody hell's going on. It's a bit like me trying to play shogi. I don't know, that game's too hard. And I did just settle down and play some Hanafuda deck gambling as well for a little bit too long, because they're such simple games. It's like Hanafuda blackjack, like Oichu Kabu, I think it's called. And I played that for far too long. Lost all my money. Like, didn't make anything out of it, but like it was good fun. Yeah, that's what I'm playing. I'm still playing it. It's still good. I'm friends with a sushi chef.
Because you ate every item on the restaurant.
All the sushi.
No, I went fishing and gave him some fish.
Oh, okay.
And then he made sushi for someone else.
Yeah, now he's my friend. And I gave someone a job because they protected a dog. There you go.
You think that's not a very a consistent fish supply for someone who makes sushi? Just the fact that
I know, it's funny.
You happen to catch some.
It's a slightly weird storyline, right? Because the sushi chef doesn't believe in himself, and he's like, "Oh, if only someone caught me some fresh fish." And it's like, is that not what sushi is? Like,
he wants it to be fresher, more fresh.
Apparently, yeah,
the freshest.
So I'm going to catch it, and then several hours later, several days later, I'm going to bring it out of my inventory and say, "Here, have this goby."
It's a race against time.
It's a suicide mission. Anyway, that's what's happening.
All right, what have you been playing, Zach?
I've been playing far too much different things to talk about at the end of this podcast, so I'm just going to skip
okay.
Well, there was a Next Fest, so there was a bunch of demos.
Yeah, cool.
I played a bunch of random demos. The only one I probably need to talk about is they made a demo for Shapes 2, the sequel to Shapes.
What was that? I remember us talking about it. I can't...
It's the super minimalist Factorio game.
Oh,
where
yes.
It's just a bunch of shapes and colours.
Yeah.
You have to mash together to make different shapes and colours.
Yeah, okay, I remember.
But yes, they made a sequel to that where, well, it's now 3D. Like, it now has a physical, 3D level, which is weirdly is like, for some reason, like floating asteroids in space that just have shapes growing on them that you can mine and colours.
Okay.
And also, like, in the original game, the building in the middle, the hub, which is where you just deliver everything to, it's just like a square. In fact, it's just a UI element always. It's a square where the ports go in, but the top of it just shows you your current objective. So it wasn't really anything. Like, everything in that game wasn't anything, of course, because it was just that abstract. But now the thing you deliver to is a giant vortex that you just chuck the shapes into.
Okay.
For no apparent reason. Who knows why you're doing any of this? But yeah, it is basically the 3D version of that game, which allows them to do some slightly more cool things. Like now when you're the way it used to, you had the shapes and you would like stack the shapes on top of each other, and there was like 4 layers that you could put on, and then like you had to make different shapes for each of the layers or whatever, and colors and all that stuff. But now, because it's 3D, you actually physically move the thing onto the second level and drop it onto the one below when you're stacking them. Like but because it's 3D now, that's actually a physical process, not just a random thing where two inputs go into a building.
I see.
Obviously, they do still go into a building, the stacker building, but now it's more obvious that that's what it's doing. It's putting this one that's on top of the one that's on the bottom.
Right, yeah.
You don't just have to remember that it's this port that goes on top like you used to.
So is this like Infinifactory?
Yeah, kind of.
Infinifactories to Space Cam.
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, it's in another way that it's very similar to that is like when they updated it to 3D and had to make a user interface or whatever, they made an incredibly awesome user interface because it's just so easy to like manipulate everything. Like it's so smooth to be able to like when you're dragging a belt line out, as you're dragging, you can push like Q and E to go up and down levels, and it automatically just puts in an elevator or whatever at the square that you're on.
Oh, okay.
So you can just drag and go up and then go down and then like,
and
then also when you're dragging, you can hit another button. I forgot which one, but you can hit another button to put an anchor point on, so you can make a corner, and then that means you can do proper zigzags dragged in one move. Because it does the auto corner thing where if you drag away from a point, it creates a right angle or whatever, and you can flip it to the opposite right angle. But then you can create these anchor points so you can do much more complicated routes.
Just in one smooth
motion. In one drag.
Yeah, nice.
And it does a lot of stuff like that. And like in the old game, you had splitters where you run one belt in and split it into two or whatever. But now you don't even need that any longer. It just does it automatically. You just drag a belt past a place where it could split into like a building, and it automatically just splits off. And if you run a belt into another belt or drag away from a belt, it automatically creates a split or a merge.
Now, there are times where you don't want that automation, and is the trick just don't drag it that far? Or
well, yeah, if you don't overlap the drag or whatever. But I assume that maybe that'll be a thing that will come into some. Well, I guess it's not really a puzzle element exactly, but it's like because if you're dragging a belt across the entry point to a building and it automatically splits, that means your belt is immediately adjacent to a building. So obviously, if you wanted to space that out for other reasons, you'd have to like do it slightly differently. But it is just one of those. And then obviously it has like blueprint. The original game had blueprints as well, but this game, I didn't realize until I went back and played the original, which spoilers, I also played that. But like the original had blueprints, but it kind of didn't. It called them blueprints, but it was really just copy paste.
Right.
Whereas now it's actually blueprints. You just you can save them and
keep them forever.
Do all the stuff that Factorio does. Because Factorio is still the number one blueprinting system in any game ever.
Sure.
But yeah, Shapes 2. And they're it's interesting because they updated the demo with an extra mechanic like halfway through the demo period or this next fest period or whatever. And the new mechanic that they've put in is in Shapes 2, it's called pins, which is basically it allows you to put an empty space on a layer and then stack something on top of it. Because in Shapes 2, if you stack something on top of something else and there's a hole in the layer below, it falls down to fill that hole because it's like a physical thing now. Whereas in Shapes 1, it had this, you could have empty spaces on a layer and stack something on top unless it exactly fitted on that hole, and then it fell into the layer below, except not really fell. And then that gave this weird puzzle mechanic in Shapes 1 where you had to make floating layers where you couldn't build it by just putting the thing onto that layer because it would fill in the hole. So you had to like basically hook it onto a temporary part that then allowed you to affix it, and then you delete the temporary part afterwards.
Well, this sounds a lot like Infinifactory and Space Chem type mechanics.
Yeah. But yeah, that was... It was weird because in Shapes 1, that mechanic was unexplained and kind of difficult to work out, but it was also part of like the main goals. There was like two of the specific levels gave you goals that you had to do this floating shape thing in. But because it wasn't explained, it was actually really difficult to figure out the exact reasons why it works like that. Like the way that you had to cut off the extra bit, but only after you'd like glued it together. and that kind of thing. But yeah, now in Shapes 2, that's just a mechanic where you have basically a non-shape that you can just use to fill the gap, which prevents the top bit from falling down. So presumably that's going to make those puzzles a bit more obvious and therefore expand the different options of what you can make. But yeah, apart from that,
interesting. Sounds like a pretty substantial upgrade. Or a substantial change over the first game.
Yes, it does seem like it's... The first game was a very, what we would call a concept game.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Boil it down to its simplest element.
Yeah, and now it's going to be a Infinifactory style. It's just a real game now. It's a real boy. And there's also going to be I
hope they use that as their marketing line. It's a real boy.
They've also made it so the paint is actually different from the shapes, because before it was all just items on a belt, but now you can actually have pipes or whatever to pump the paint around. But then you can also put it into an item and put that on a belt if you want.
Has it still got a really stark aesthetic as well?
Well, apart from being in space, but yeah, kind of. It's not as it's not as black and white as the old game was.
That's a bit of a shame. I think they probably should have kept the concept, as we would call it, But I'm sort of imagining it in my head as it's a white background and you're putting weird flat shaded cubes into a white back. I don't know why I've got this kind of it's all working on paper view.
It could have worked, but I think trying to make that with the 3D elements, it would be more difficult to make a style that would actually work. If you wanted to keep the pure white paper background style.
Yeah, wouldn't necessarily have to be that, but I would have quite dug it, I think, with flat shading or something like that. Just
I mean, it's not super high HD or whatever.
Yeah.
It does actually look quite a lot like Infinifactor, I would have said.
Okay.
Even in the art style, in some ways. But yeah, that's Shapes 2. But then I also played...
I guess I'm thinking more something like Humanity's kind of take on it, where it's
maybe.
Yeah.
Just a void.
Mm.
I also played the whole of Shapes 1 again, basically. Because it advertised me. I was like, I need to go back to the first. But then, of course, when I went back to the first, I realised it made me even more realise why the new UI of Shapes 2 is better. Because it's not just the UI, there's also actual gameplay mechanics. Because, a lot of the buildings in Shapes 1 that do the mechanics, you can't flip. So you're locked into the left port being the one that stacks on top of the right port or whatever.
So you can't even rotate them around or anything like that.
Yeah, so it makes it weird because then if you're building a factory that goes to the left, that's fine. But if you try and build that same thing going to the right, it doesn't work any longer because you can't build the same entries and splits.
Yeah. Gotcha. It's weird.
Yeah, this is weird. That came back to me as soon as I went in, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's why that felt so much better in the demo of Shapes 2." I was like, "Oh yeah, but it's because it was annoying in Shapes 1."
It has to be magnetically aligned to the planet.
Yeah, I guess. And the thing is, it's not there are a couple of buildings that do allow you to flip, except it's not really flip. It's it's a separate building that just has the ports inverted, but it's obviously deliberate, is what I would say. It's not just that they didn't allow you to do it; it's that they chose not to allow you to do it for most of the buildings.
Right.
But yeah, so I played. And and the other reason I went back to play more Shapes 1 is because I looked at the achievement list. It's there's some achievements I haven't got. Except the trouble is that, of course, there are a couple that I'm probably never going to get because there's speedrun achievements.
Oh right, yeah. And
I wouldn't have a problem with that, except for I was thinking about it. Is I got Factorio's speedrun achievements, and that was fine. And I've looked at Dyson Sphere program speedrun achievements, and it's I think I could probably pull that off, but it's the trouble in Dyson Sphere program's case, it's hard to tell because it's too long. Because the speedrun for the fast speedrun, there's two, of course. There's the slow speedrun and the fast speedrun. The fast speedrun in Dyson Sphere program is still 10 hours.
Right.
And that's I can't see that far ahead to say how easy or difficult that would be.
Right, yeah.
But then in Shapes, the problem is it's the opposite, where the speedrun isn't even the whole game. It's only the first 12 levels. But that is the speedrun on that is half an hour. So that's an execution style speedrun, not a planning style speedrun.
It's a clicks per second kind of.
Especially because level 12 in Shapes is where you unlock blueprints. So before that, you can't even copy paste. You have to manually click everything in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A true APM run.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm probably not going to get those achievements, I guess. But then I looked at some of the other ones that are just like production targets. I was like, I can knock a few more of them out while I play this again. And then I played it all the way through and got to the end game where you build the fancy make anything machine, because Shapes 1 has, you unlock it quite late on, or, well, you unlock parts of it relatively early, but it doesn't really become useful until right at the end of the game, basically. But it has basically a separate layer that is like the wiring layer, where you can then start using like logic gates and whatnot. And sensors and stuff. So the real end game of Shapes 1, after you've finished all the goals, is, well, you get to level 26. Up to level 26, those goals are all preset, so that the shapes are, what the game developer wanted you to make. But after that, the shapes are randomly generated. So the trick is, at that point, you have to build a machine that senses what shape it wants you to make and then automatically reconfigures itself to make that.
Jeez. That doesn't sound simple.
No, it's not. And it's also huge.
Yeah.
Because inherently, you just need you need basically a belt for every color, and obviously it's RGB and CYMK, basically. So you need 7 belts of colors and 4 belts for each of the different shapes, and then those shapes need to be able to cut down into quarters for each quarter of each layer of the shape.
For what is something boiled down to its simplest elements, they've come up with the most complicated end goal.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, that's the true ending of Shapes. Make anything machine, and then
I mean, that's pretty cool.
And then hilariously, don't play the game any longer.
Yeah,
just leave it running,
just because it will do what you want. That is kind of cool.
Because I had already previously got the achievement for complete 6 levels without touching it, where that's the proof that you've made the make anything machine.
Man, does that mean it's exponential? If they want to do that trick again in Shapes 2, that's going to be exponentially harder just because of the nature of 3D.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I don't know if it would necessarily be harder, because of the things that make it easier to play Shapes 2. Like I said,
right?
It would probably be. The question will be where the wiring system will come in, because obviously in Shapes 1, it's just you just flip into this other layer.
Sure. I guess the same question could be asked of was Infinifactory exponentially harder than Space Chem, and if that answer is no, then they'll probably think about it in the same way.
No, because I guess the end game of Space Chem was the journal puzzles, where they were user created puzzles where you just get because all you had in that game was inputs and outputs, so people would just make these inputs and outputs, and you had to figure out how to do it. But because Space Chem wasn't a single solution puzzle game, whatever, it was just work out how to do it however you want. But yeah, I don't know how the end game of Shapes 2 is going to go with their. They're surely going to try and do the same thing, but I don't know how it's going to function in that game with the 3D aspect of the wiring layer, basically.
Yeah, interesting. What else you got?
What else have I got? A bunch of demos, but I don't.
There's interesting stuff.
Well, we can save them for next time, maybe. But because what I mainly played was obviously a much more Power World.
Right? Yeah.
Power World. It's still running.
Yeah, the server. Well, not that I'm playing on a server, but supposedly they're having to pay a lot of money to keep these servers operational currently. But Microsoft is trying to get them a deal or something.
Oh, really?
Supposedly.
What, are they running on Azure or something? Or?
I don't know what the actual server structure is, but Microsoft is kind of invested in this now. The Power World concept.
Interesting.
Well, because of Game Pass, obviously.
Right, yeah.
So they already had some investment.
I wonder how. Oh, that's weird, isn't it? I wonder if that complicates the whole Nintendo are looking at it kind of thing.
Maybe. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure there wasn't. It's not a developer deal or anything.
No.
It was just Game Pass, and maybe we help these guys continue to make it function on Game Pass because it's popular on Game Pass.
Sure, yeah. It's doing well for us, so yeah, we'll give them some Azure credits to help them fund spinning up more VMs.
Yeah, maybe whatever the system is.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've continued playing our 2-player multiplayer game, so not on a server, so we don't need to worry about that. But I think we're probably reaching what I would suspect is the mid game, and that's the point where it's now you're hitting the real where the game is no longer very well balanced because it's still early access and they probably haven't gone into this deep of the progression, and maybe it needs another pass or whatever.
Is it technically still early access?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's on Game Preview or whatever.
Oh, right.
But you reach this sort of mid-game area, and it's like there's several like angles where it feels mid-game because the map progression as you explore further into the map feels kind of spiky. Like it's normally like a separate island. Like you'll cross a river onto this new land, and it's like, oh, everything is 10 levels higher here.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
which doesn't feel very smooth compared to your progress, and sort of in the nature of the way the weapons and like attack power scales in that game as well. Like once you get the musket as your first gun over the crossbow, which was the previous main weapon. And the musket does insane amounts of damage compared to the crossbow against the same level of enemy.
Right, yeah.
But
then you go to the next biome.
But then you go one biome further, and now the musket does shit all damage as well.
Right, yeah.
But you don't really have better... You have, like, the handgun at that point, but that even doesn't do that much more damage. And obviously the expense of making all the ammo and stuff is increasing as well along with the technology progressing. So I feel like that's not very smooth at the moment, that sort of difficulty curve. And
I wonder if that's intentional. To be like, oh, they've been through this loop once. Let's do the same loop with like.
Well, the thing that I thought about
different
it,
looking gear.
The thing that I thought about it initially when we first met one of these spikes, which was before the musket was totally useless, sort of made it normal damage. I thought that was intentional because they were basically trying to make sure you're using your powers to do fighting.
Right.
Like to actually say, hey, you should probably have a decently leveled team that you're actually going to bring into the fight and actually let them do the damage. Then you can just hit the thing with a ball or whatever. That made sense. But like these other later ones, it's just like we seem to be falling behind in our weaponry, and even our powers aren't keeping up any longer because their level is sort of inherently linked to your level in some ways.
Is that a problem because like in case you get like base raided, like is that leveling up as well?
So that is the other problem of leveling, is that like there's multiple parallel leveling systems that are maybe also not very well balanced, because you have your personal level, which you just get experience from capturing and whatever and fighting and crafting and all that stuff. You get experience. And then you have the base level, which is based on what buildings you've built in your base, but you unlock the buildings from your personal level going up the tech tree.
Right.
So your personal level unlocks the tech tree, you unlock things in the tech tree, you build those things in the base, and then that levels up the base. So, but the problem is that your personal level sort of outpaces everything else just because you're always getting experience, whereas like maybe your pals aren't always getting experience because they're not always going to be in your team, so they're always going to be slightly behind you. And the ones in the base, I'm not sure what's going on with the ones in the base, because it seems like they normally get experience from working, but it seems like that maybe plateaus at a certain point. Like they can only get to like, it seems about level 16 to 20 maybe, and then the experience stops being generated. Because it seems like if every pal in your base has reached that kind of level, they don't seem to get experience any longer. But if you put in a new one that's at like level 1 or whatever, they all start getting experience again because that guy's getting experience. Like him doing the tasks is what generates the experience for him, but because it's shared across everyone in the base, then everyone else in the base can start getting experience again. And I'm not, that may be intentional as well to encourage you to like cycle out different people into the base roles.
Right.
Maybe. It's hard to tell.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, because your personal level outpaces everything else, you unlock the tech tree too fast. So we're getting to the point where we've got like 2 or 3 levels more in the tech tree than we're even able to use because we haven't found the resources we need to use the current level of the tech tree we're at.
Right, yeah.
And then with the base leveling, there's also another difficulty spike, which I'm pretty sure is related to the base leveling, where at certain levels of your base progress, the raids get harder, but it's not smooth.
Right, there's a very sudden jump to, oh god, why is this so much harder?
Like now you reach like level 14 on the base, and then the next raid, everything in your base dies because the enemies are so much more powerful now. Jeez. Which is also why I noticed the like level 16 plateau problem in the base, because it's like these enemies are coming in at 26, but none of my pals in the base were leveling up any longer. They were all stuck at like 16. And I was like, well, this sucks. Now I have to like take my base pals into my team and go out with them for a while to level them up so I can put them back in the base and they'll actually be able to survive the raids.
Strange, isn't it?
Or don't do that, just build a wall.
Yeah.
Because it turns out, of course, AI is dumb. You just build a wall around the base and they just stand out there and then you shoot them in the head if you want to. Or just let them time out and then they'll just leave.
Okay.
They will sometimes try and attack the walls, but the walls have so much health it's totally irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Again, one of these systems where it's like early access, it's like this needs rethinking a little bit.
Yeah, or maybe the wall is the intended tactic.
Well, the trouble is that like you also have the gun emplacements or whatever. But
it still always sounds so bizarre, right? Like, given the context of what this game is.
I've only as far as we've got in the tech tree, you only get like a mounted crossbow emplacement, which is like obviously the first version of the gun emplacement. And I've tried using that, but the trouble is I think it doesn't. You're not meant to use it as you would logically think to use it. Like you think. Obviously, you put the guns at the like entrance to your base, and then you shoot the enemies as they're coming in.
Sure,
right. But I don't think that's what they're actually for. I think they're meant to be more of a support thing, where you put them at the back of the base so they can overview the whole base and just do extra damage by having like weak pals whose regular attacks won't do much damage on the guns.
Right.
And then your regular fighters keeping them occupied.
Well, that sort of makes sense. Yeah, you give the non-physical pals the ability to shoot good.
Yes, that it makes sense, but it's not what you first logically think gun emplacements are for.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, because you might want them as like do some damage as they're approaching. So, but when it gets bad, then your physical guys get involved.
Yeah,
I guess.
But it doesn't seem to be balanced that way. It seems much more like that's just a way to get weaker towers a better damage output to contribute to the big fight rather than being the upfront defense part of it. But again, I at the moment it seems like the better tactic is to just close your base off entirely with a wall and don't bother with the raids.
Fine. Yeah.
Maybe lean over the wall, shoot some things in the head, and chuck a couple of balls down there if you want them.
Is there there's no disadvantage to missing a raid because it will just come back at some time later, right?
Yeah, they're just randomly generated,
right? Yeah.
And like, it's kind of awkward to try and capture them if you want them because if they pile up on the wall, that makes it difficult to hit a specific one. If you want to target one specifically, and also like when they trigger their despawn sequence, they just run away, but they just run. They don't even react if you start shooting them then, so you can't stop them from running away.
Right. They're like if you like kite something out of their attack range.
They just go.
Yeah, they just.
And I did have a really annoying case where I chased them down as they were running away, and I got one down to low health, and I was like, oh yeah, I can just get it. So I threw a ball at it, and it hit it, and it was doing the capture sequence where the percentage was counting up, and it reached 100%, but the thing despawned while it was in the ball. So I still didn't get it. It was like, oh, come on, really?
Oh, that's pretty funny. I gotta admit, I had one of those like, oh, come on moments in Yakuza. Like, cause there was an evasion challenge for one of the masters. You can learn moves off for Kiryu. All his things are evasion challenges. Like, don't get hit. Don't get knocked down specifically. Oh no, it wasn't that one. No, that one. It wasn't that one. It was the beast mode challenge, where he's got his like beast mode fighting style back. And the challenge in that one is to earn enough money because there's these money boxes lying around, and in those challenges you've got to be using those money boxes to damage the enemy mannequins with.
Right.
And then you get the money out of the box. So you've got to know which boxes to go for. Anyway, blah blah blah. The whole thing. Like the timer hit 0 as the last mannequin was dying from the box side thing. So technically the timer expired after I had done the job.
Right.
But it didn't trigger that because the mannequin hadn't quite animated its death enough.
Had disappeared.
Yeah. Or hadn't quite got through its destruction enough. And I'm like, oh, come on. Because it costs you money to do these training exercises as well. Admittedly, at this point, it's like the amount of money it costs is a little trivial.
Right.
But still, it was just like, oh man, I got to do that again on a technicality just because they didn't animate it quite. Or did they?
They didn't say that it was done at the start of the animation rather than the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a little frustrating. Also, like in fairness to the other one I mentioned, the evasion challenge, that's quite an annoying challenge anyway to do, or I didn't know what the trick was. So, but it has the sort of I guess kind of like a Nintendo like problem more than anything, in that there isn't a quick restart on those.
Right.
Like you have to go through, because it's got all this conversation associated with it, because
Right.
it's a Yakuza game. It's like you go back into it and it's like, oh man, you failed it. Oh yeah, you're got to do better next time. And I'm yeah, all right, I will. Yeah, okay. Can I just go again? And then no, you have to start the conversation again and say, no, which training are you doing? The same one I just did, please. And then, oh yeah, so this is how it works. This is the guy. Oh no, it's a conversation with the guy that I'm evading, and it's just like there's a lot of button presses to get through each time just to get back to where you were. It's like it's a bit annoying, but there aren't many moments like that, I think, in these games where you are just retrying something, bashing your head against it a bit, because there's no other way around it other than just keep trying it. But when you do come across them, they're pretty annoying in Yakuza games. The only time that's ever really happened to me, like for real in a Yakuza game, was in Kiwami 1, and the boss fights in that are insanely difficult.
Right. Like, and then when you restart, you have to have the boss monologue at you again.
Sometimes, yeah. Most of the time, in those circumstances, they'll make the cutscene skippable, so you can at least press start, and then there's a skip button there. But not always. This is not one of the conversations you have with this guy are not skippable.
Then I guess the last problem that we've sort of run into in Power World is like, because in multiplayer they have guilds, and that applies to even when you're just playing on the local 4-player servers that aren't servers. But when you're playing that, you can form a guild which allows you to share your base, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
It doesn't share your pals, except, well, it's weird. You have your own personal storage, like the boxes, but ones that are in the base can be accessed by anyone.
Okay.
So if you put something in there, the other person could just take it. And
sure.
That makes it easier to deal with. And you can still take stuff out of your storage and like drop it on the ground. The other person can pick it up if you want to trade, that kind of thing. But I think the problem that we're starting to run into, which again is another classic balance problem of this kind of multiplayer, is that because we're in a guild, the number of bases you can build is based on the guild. Whereas if we were 2 individual players, we could build twice as many bases and get twice as many resources. Which, as you can imagine, means that we're basically running on half as many resources as we would be if we were playing single player or whatever, or playing 2 separate characters making twice as many bases. So it kind of fucks with the balance there as well.
Could you make bases in the same place, or?
I don't know how that works if we were 2 individual people.
Right, where you'd have to build in 2 separate locations.
Well, you probably have to build at least without the zone around them, overlapping presumably, but you probably could put them immediately next to each other to the point where the zone would touch.
Right. Oh, and the zone doesn't grow as you build?
No.
It's like a fixed area.
It's not affected by the base upgrades.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if you get like twice as many raids in that style.
Probably.
Though. Yeah.
And
they get distracted and start coming to yours.
Well, probably if the bases were close enough, you'd have the whole teams of both bases attacking the enemies. Yeah. But yeah, that is a slight balance problem, I guess. We probably could fix that just by using the actual game options, because the game has like a full customization of difficulty.
Oh,
so we probably could just jack the resource density to like twice as much, and that would solve the problem.
Yeah, and it goes away. Yeah, interesting.
But yeah, I maybe I'll suggest that, see if we think that's worthwhile.
Isn't it a fixed map? Like, what does that actually do? Does it?
Well, the resources basically have twice as much in the node.
Oh, I see. Right.
Which might not help, because like our mining base is sort of speed limited at the moment. Like, we can only mine the rocks as fast as the number of powers in that base allows. So
but if you have 2 bases,
if we had 2 bases, we could have had 2 whole teams
working on the same node.
Well, not on the same node, but a similar node somewhere else, because ore rocks tend to spawn in like clusters of 6 or 7. So you could probably find another one of those and just put another base on it. So maybe 200% wouldn't help. I don't know if you can affect how fast you mine the resources. You might be able to, because the difficulty customization is like extensive. You can customize basically everything.
Neat.
Like how much hunger goes down, how much health the enemies have.
I mean, is that also a sign that maybe they don't know what the balance should be?
Maybe.
Because they put all that in because it's like, maybe we'll see what players do.
I think the thing is that it feels fine in single player.
Right, yeah.
From what I've played in the single player. It feels like it's balanced to that, which makes it weird that it's not balanced to the multiplayer, which kind of seems to be the point of this game.
That it can do that and Pokemon can't.
Yeah. But yeah, early access balance problems, we'll see what happens.
Minor news, there were some rumours flying around that the next Golden... They're doing Gold and Silver remakes, but in the Let's Go formula.
Ugh, weird. They better fucking fit in the whole of the previous game as well, like they did with Gold and Silver.
Yeah, the whole other island.
They sure won't do that.
It's not an island, is it? It's a continent, I suppose.
Well, you could call it another island because it's kind of Japan, right?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Just connected by an arbitrary rail line in those games that just miscellaneous space and distance between them.
Right.
Anyway, I'll probably talk about some of these demos that I played next time because this podcast is already far too long.
I think we've reached a reasonable length. Let's store those up for next time. But this has been good.
I mean, we've got some hot topic stuff there.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like holding it down on the brand new release tip this week.
Holding it down on the tip. The new release tip. Cool.
Apparently Foam Stars isn't worth our time.
What a surprise.
What a surprise.
But I think it was the Kotaku comment was like there was all these talk about it being like a Splatoon ripoff. It would have been better if it was.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us for this podcast. We also have a video channel on YouTube, Happy Salad. Check us out there. We're doing what are we doing? Let's play of Sonic Adventure 2.
Woo, you're talking about Shadow.
Yeah. Talking about one of the games he's playable in.
Shadow times. Probably one of the most iconic appearances of Shadow the Hedgehog.
Well, the first.
Yeah, it's first.
Yeah, the first and crucial.
Well, until he wielded guns, I suppose.
That is very iconic.
No one can ever forget that.
No. Oh, God. Is he going to have guns in Generations? I guess that's part.
Well,
no.
They
won't go back to that.
Well, it would have to be part of that level, right?
Just put him in Power World and he'll get loads.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, man. Yeah, Power World X Sega. There we go. Let's do this. Let's do it.
It's coming.
That'd be Fantasy Star and it'd be Sonic.
Check out our YouTube channel. And we'll be back where you found this podcast in 2 weeks with another one. So we'll catch you then. See ya.